That's what we're committed to, and we're going to make sure we get this right.
Minister, I'll leave it on that note. I appreciate you making the time for the conversation very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Vashi.
When we come back, summer of discontent. Unions representing the federal public service say they'll fight tooth and nail new rules which require them to be in the office 3 days a week. How far could that action go? The Public Service Alliance of Canada's national president, Chris Aylward, is here next.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Happy Mother's Day, and you need a little extra time getting off to supper with Mom on the 20 East. An absolute crawl before Angrignon with a closure on the 136 East from Turcotte to Ottawakan, except for motorists coming down to Carey, who, if they really want to go on to the 136 East, will get funneled off at Atwood. Right now, it's actually palatable, as is the Champlain Bridge. Just a little busy boarding at Nuns Island. To Carey north, a slow mover, NDG Tunnel to the top, as is the southbound side over the top third. 40 East is off and on. Côte de Liesse to Saint-Laurent. The Met West is stop and go. Lacordaire to Descaries, Laurentian South to Salaberry. Make it Henri Bourassa now down to the Met. We have an incident on the Gédéon Bridge, 15 South, backing folks from the 4 Sainte-Thérèse. 40 East still looking at about 25 minutes, almost Avenue Saint-Charles, 15 minutes heading off the airport exits, 20 West, 520 West. There are days when the traffic is ridiculous, but at Canac hardware stores, the prices are ridiculous. Every day, visit canac.ca. I'm Mark Shalhoub, CJAD 800 Traffic, and transit every 15 minutes, next at 5:30.
From May 8th to 12th, it's Samuelson's biannual warehouse sale. Find luxury tailored and ready-to-wear men's suits, sport coats, jackets, shirts, overcoats, and more at incredible prices. Up to 80% off. It only happens twice a year. Park Avenue in Beaumont.
So many Quebecers suffer from back pain, which, when left untreated, can result in a loss of quality of life. The Quebec Chiropractors Association invites you to learn more. Visit chiropractic.com for more information about the practice. You can find tips and advice for daily activities and where you can find the chiropractor closest to you. Be well informed, prevent injuries, live your life to the fullest. Pain changes everything. Chiropractic care changes pain.
With a unique and festive atmosphere, seats that allow you to see the game from every angle, and passionate supporters, a CF Montreal game at Stade Saputo is an experience. Plus, the beer is cold and the food is great. Don't wait. Buy your tickets today at cfmontreal.com.
MyShoeShop.ca is Canada's shoe store for European comfort footwear featuring Birkenstock, Gabor, Haflinger, Naturino Kids, and many more. Shop online or in person at 1325 Green Avenue in Westmount. MyShoeShop.ca. We sell summer.
To discover the Loto Quebec Casino experience, pick a number from 1 to 36 now. And it's 3, like treating your taste buds to a 3-course meal at a casino restaurant. 18 and over. Game must remain a game.
Introducing Tim's new flatbread pizza. Served hot out of the oven in 4 delicious flavors with Simply Cheese. Starting from $6.99 plus tax. There's a new Tim's run in town. Try one today. Terms and conditions apply at participating restaurants in Canada.
This is Mike from Andy's House. If you or a loved one are struggling with drugs or alcohol, call us to learn more about our top-rated programs, including our new 35-day Residential Plus program. Call 514-738-ANDY. 514-738-ANDY. Call today.
It's the 76th anniversary of the rebirth of the State of Israel, and you are invited to show your solidarity with the people and the State of Israel on Tuesday, May 14th at 11 a.m. at Place du Canada, corner on René Lévesque and Peel. Win airfare for 2 to Israel. Contest rules, free transportation schedules, and event information are available at israelcelebration.ca. See you all on May 14th at Place du Canada. Please help us spread the word. Am Yisrael Chai.
Sometimes finding true love can be like looking for a needle in a haystack. CTV's hit matchmaking show is back for another rustically romantic season. Farming for Love starts Wednesday, May 29th on CTV.
Federal public service unions are threatening what they're calling a summer of discontent in response to new rules that federal employees will need to work from the office at least 3 days a week, up from the current 2. The feds announced the change last week, and it's set to come into effect in September. In some places, like here in Ottawa, there's been pressure to get more workers back to the office to help boost the downtown economy. The unions say they weren't consulted, though, and are prepared to launch legal challenges. The feds say the decision is up to them. Have a listen.
All of that is within the jurisdiction of the Government of Canada, and it's executed by the departments. And I will say that a hybrid work environment is not within the collective agreements.
So what could a summer of discontent really look like? Chris Aylward is the National President of the Public Service Alliance of Canada. Hi, Mr. Aylward. Good to see you. Thank you for making the time.
My pleasure.
Help me and Canadians watching understand, one extra day in the office, is it really worth a summer of discontent? This isn't 5 days full-time in office.
No, you're right. I mean, it seems like it's just one more day, but this is not just a misstep by the Trudeau Liberal government. There was absolutely no consultation on this. They haven't yet to say what was the basis of their decision. What was the rationale for their decision? They just admitted this week, just yesterday, that they didn't do any research. They didn't participate in any surveys with the employees or anything like that. So we're left to think this decision was purely political. No consultation after promising that. So we're fed up with the broken promises of this Trudeau Liberal government. That's why we're so upset, and that's why we're saying to this government, be prepared for a summer of discontent unless you're prepared to walk this mandate back. Sit down and talk to us about it.
And I will ask you about what that summer of discontent might entail for Canadians and for the government in a moment. But can you, I guess, explain, the government's response is essentially, you may not like it, but it's our right to do this. And going from 2 to 3 days, it was our right to say 2 days, it's our right to say 3 days. It's not in the collective agreement. Don't they have a point?
When you look at it, Vashi, 4 years ago, we pivoted very quickly. We went into full remote work. Tens of millions of Canadians received Canada Emergency Relief Benefit checks. Employers received Canada Emergency Wage Subsidies. This was all that was done from remote work. Everybody knows remote work is the future of work. There is no doubt in anybody's mind. And the research demonstrates more productivity, happier employees, and better retention and recruitment issues as well. So when they say, 3 days versus 5 days and that, it's the principle of this. We went on strike last year, one of the largest strikes in Canadian history, and we achieved a letter of agreement. Absolutely right, it's not in our collective agreement, but it's a letter of agreement. The President of Treasury Board signed that agreement.
They also say in the original update to the policy that it will maximize the benefits of presence in the workplace and bring greater fairness and consistency to the application of hybrid work. I mean, I know you point out that a lot got done in remote work, but also I think back to the passport crisis, and part of the problem there was that too many people were still working from home. There weren't enough people in those passport offices. Does the government, again, not have a point?
No, I mean, when you just say there about the fairness, let's talk about the fairness. Okay, let's take a cookie-cutter approach to this. One size fits all. That's what they're saying. In this case, one size fits none, really, because this is simply not going to work. They can say we have the space, we have the space. I would ask them to look in one location and one location only. Do you have enough space in Miramichi at the National Pay Center to house all of the pay center, the compensation advisors? I don't think they do. So when they say there's enough space, sure, there's enough space when they can cherry pick. You come in the office today, you come in the office tomorrow, you come in the office the day after that. They have enough space. But when they're saying everybody in the office 3 days a week, how is that fair? How is that equitable when they just simply come out with this unilateral, arbitrary decision like that?
But respectfully, Mr. Aylward, is it any different than what's happening 2 days a week? I mean, it's just one extra day.
It's about the fairness. It's sit down and talk to us.
Is it mostly that they didn't tell you in advance? Like, is that the gist of why?
Another broken promise by this Trudeau Liberal government. That's what we're frustrated about. That's what the members are extremely frustrated about. We're doing
even though it does adhere to the collective agreement.
It's a letter of agreement that was signed during the collective bargaining process. If they cannot honor that, well, then what's the point of them signing anything and agreeing to anything? That's our view right now. They can just sign things off and say, oh, no, we're not going to do that. So right now, we have 63,000 members who have responded to a survey that we started just earlier this week. 63,000 of our members participated in the survey so far. 89% of them now said they're willing to take action on this.
Like go on strike over an extra day in the office?
Take action. That means send a letter to your member of parliament, send a letter to Anita, and then we have over 40,000 letters already sent on this issue from our membership. So this is an issue for our members, and this Trudeau Liberal government better wake up really soon and get, we have federal workers totally upset. Now, I don't expect anybody to be shaking in their boots right now. But we have our FBs. We're at the bargaining table with our FBs. That's our members who work at the Canada Border Service Agency. Not all of our members at CBSA are frontline officers. A lot of them do administration work that could be easily done from home. So you're going to see some major disruptions if we can't get this figured out and other issues as well.
And I put this to you with great respect and great respect for the public servants of this country. But and I've said this to you before, I think a lot of Canadians, and I hear from them, watch this and think these public servants had way more security in their jobs than I could ever dream of during the pandemic and even since. I have to go into the office 5 days a week. I don't have what they have. Why are they making such a big deal over something the rest of the country has to do already?
We're doing this, as I said, Vashi, because this is the future of work. And everybody knows that. And this government should be a leader in that. We recognize that, yes, we were very fortunate. We're in a unionized environment. Back in the 1970s, who had maternity leave? Unions fought for maternity leave, and now maternity leave is pretty much a given in most workplaces. So we're able to achieve this for our members. It's only going to benefit all workers to say, hey, we got a remote work situation here. Let's avail ourselves of that.
Just one really quick final question. Has the minister reached out? Has there been any communication since your initial response and all the unions saying that there's going to be this summer of discontent?
There's been absolutely no communication with me from Treasury Board since April 25th when I asked them directly, are you changing your policy on telework? And the answer was no.
Okay, I'll leave it on that note. Mr. Aylward, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Coming up, Joe Biden warns Israel. The U.S. president is pledging to stop sending offensive weapons to Israel if it moves ahead with an invasion into Rafah. What does that signal, and what domestic political pressures on the issue does he face? Longtime political journalist Chuck Todd will be here after a short break.
Good afternoon, it's 5:30. I'm Don Kagan-Fleming with your CTV News Update. Here's what's making news. A pro-Palestine protest encampment like the one at McGill is being set up at the Université de Québec à Montréal. It's at UQAM's Cœur de Sciences near Sherbrooke and Jeanne-Mance. Organizers say they have set the camp up in solidarity with the people of Palestine. They don't plan on leaving until demands for the removal of a requested injunction against the McGill protest, an academic boycott of Israeli universities involved in the action in Gaza, and the shutdown of the planned Quebec Diplomatic Affairs office in Israel are met. A man in his 30s has been confirmed as the 10th murder victim of the year in Montreal. Police got 911 calls this morning about his body being found in an alley near Montréal and Park in the Plateau. It showed marks of violence. And Mother's Day demonstration was being held by the group Les Mères au Front, asking politicians today to protect future generations by committing to fight the climate crisis. TVA reports among their calls were for improved investment in public transit and new strategies on energy and fossil fuels, as well as protection plans for caribou. And now heading over to the CJAD 800 Traffic Center. How's it looking out there, Mark?
Well, still slow on a number of spots, Don, but some good news. 640 eastbound at Urban Nova, that 60-minute delay at the peak because of the crash has started to melt away down to 20 minutes now that the incident has been removed. So still a pinch from Rosemere. Things are getting a little better now, even though it's backing to Blainville on Laurentian southbound, clearing after the 640 merge after a short-lived but damaging incident on the Gédéon-Ouimet Bridge. Then sluggish merging Saint-Martin down to Notre-Dame. Once you're on the Montreal side of the Back River / Médéric Martin Bridge, stop and go from de Salaberry to the Met, which is heaviest L'Acadie to Descaries, and also prior to that on the westbound side from Lacordaire to Saint-Michel. 40 east, not much of a respite. Côte de Liesse to Saint-Laurent, nor is there Descaries north. NDG tunnel to the top, southbound over the top. 320 east, heavy duty before Angrignon with the 136 east closure. Turcotte to Ottawakan this week. And get your DIY on during the Get Ready for Summer sale at Home Hardware with deals on paint and power tools only until June 5th. Your next CJAD 800 Traffic and Transit report is coming up exceptionally during question period at 5:50.
And now your Dormez-vous Weather Center forecast. Some fog tonight with a low of 9. Clouds tomorrow with some afternoon showers and a high of 19. And then rain on Tuesday with a high of 18 degrees. It's 16 degrees downtown right now. Your next CTV News update is coming at 6 o'clock.
We're going to turn south of the border now, where U.S. President Joe Biden is signaling a major shift in his policy towards Israel after threatening to withhold offensive weapons if Israel moves ahead with an invasion into Rafah. Take a listen.
I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah.
Biden's articulation of a red line comes as concern increases for what an Israeli ground incursion into Rafah would mean for Palestinian civilians and the delivery of badly needed humanitarian aid into and through Gaza. Despite the warning from Biden, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing to move ahead, writing in a statement, in part, quote, "If we must, we shall fight with our fingernails." Biden's pronouncement also comes as political pressure from the progressive flank of his party in swing states increases. With more on that and the state of the U.S. presidential race more largely, I'm joined by longtime political journalist and NBC News chief political analyst, Chuck Todd. Hi, Chuck. It's such a pleasure to have you on our show today. Thanks for making the time.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me.
Did you expect the president to state this position as explicitly as he did?
Not publicly.
Yeah.
I think it was an interesting decision, and it's sort of how he did it too. He did it in an interview with CNN that was ostensibly about his trip, which was a domestic economic trip to showcase a new company, of the job openings in Wisconsin, and he did this. And it's an interesting decision to go public with it, because what it does is create rhetorical pressure, both politically for Netanyahu to respond the way he had to respond. It came across as if I think the president was worried about his domestic politics, certainly what was going on with the protesters and certainly with the youth vote, rather than thinking what was the best way to signal to Netanyahu that he was serious. The only other explanation to go this public in this way is that things are that bad behind the scenes. And frankly, every indication was it hadn't gotten to that point yet. So I do think the president invited a lot more political headaches with how he voiced this. Not the decision to do it. It's how he voiced it and how public he went with it.
Can you expand a bit on the political pressure he faces domestically? I mean, we have the protests happening in this country too, but we've watched them unfold coast to coast in the states as well. What is not just the pressure from those, but within, we've seen the votes, the people who have not cast votes, for example, in primaries. Like how can you quantify that or characterize it for us?
Well, look, I'm one of those who thinks this is an overrated concern for the Biden campaign. I'll just be honest. I think it's something that, while I do think it's a one-state issue politically for Biden, and that's the state of Michigan. There's a large Arab American population. It's so important in the math for Biden to be able to win or lose this election based on how we do our elections. And so when you realize that that's the situation that he's concerned about here, every other battleground state, you see this. Even a survey of youth voters that came out earlier this week, Israel-Gaza was 9th on the list of concerns. There were 8 other issues, most of them economic, but also abortion rights and the environment, all ranked ahead of Israel and Gaza. So in some ways, I do think the media and frankly, political opponents of the president have over-amplified, I think, what's happening as far as the significance compared to the significance of the political issue that the president has. But I'll tell you, by going public with what he did and coming out with his decision, this is sending a message to the protesters that the protests work. And an unintended consequence could be that many of these groups and protesters decide, hey, this worked, let's keep the pressure on. And this could create even more political problems for the president.
The other candidate in this presidential election is doing something very different as this unfolds. He's sitting in a courtroom as his hush money trial takes place. This week was some very high-profile testimony from adult film star Stormy Daniels. In your view, is what is unfolding in the courtroom punching through beyond the people who are already very interested in everything Trump?
There's no evidence yet that that's the case. This feels like this is sort of those that have been following it are consumed by it, and those that have sort of wake me when there's a verdict are in that camp here. Look, the bigger developments over the last 2 weeks are the fact that the former president successfully has had I think the more politically lethal cases delayed perhaps until after the election. The January 6th trial, plus the classified documents one, and the investigation in Georgia, all 3 of those appear to be on in some sort of suspended animation, if you will, and they're unlikely to see any movement until after the election, and that's assuming that Donald Trump is not president again. Because if he's president, then all of those three go away. So this was always I think the hardest one to get the public rallied around, because I'll be honest with you, this reminds me a little bit of the Bill Clinton impeachment. You know, a lot of Republicans were so outraged that Bill Clinton had an affair. And what they didn't fully realize is the American public already knew that Bill Clinton had cheated on his wife when they elected him president the first time. So it wasn't like this shock. And I think that that's what's going on here with Donald Trump. There isn't any revelatory information, if you will. They already knew all of this about Trump before they elected him the first time. If you recall the Access Hollywood tape in many ways. So I think that is one reason why, if there's a conviction, I think that's a different story. But I think that's why right now, nothing is sort of breaking through, because we're so numb to shock now. I mean, just look at this week. The day Stormy Daniels took the stands, also the day that Israel said they were going to go into Rafah, and it's also the day that Robert F. Kennedy talked about having a brain-eating parasite in his brain. I mean, this has been one of the stranger weeks. And we've had a lot of strange weeks in American politics. This one ranks right up there.
Well, it's a perfect week for us to get your insights, and I do appreciate you making the time, Chuck, for that. Thank you so much.
You got it.
That's Chuck Todd. After a quick break today, reproductive rights on Parliament Hill. The Liberals say the Tories will use the notwithstanding clause to roll back abortion access, while the Conservatives say the Liberals are just fear-mongering. The Sunday strategy session, Kathleen Monk, Corey Tenike, and David Hurley is up next to talk about that. Stay right there.
A lone wolf, a survivalist, an investigator. Justin Hartley. Let's get you all in the CTV series that will leave you breathless. Don't miss a new episode of Tracker, Sunday at 9 on CTV.
Welcome back to Question Period. While anti-abortion protesters gathered on Parliament Hill this week inside the House of Commons, Liberal MPs accused the Conservatives of preparing to attack reproductive rights. Using Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's recent comments about applying the notwithstanding clause to criminal laws, the Liberals say Poilievre will use that tool to scale back women's rights.
Are we fear-mongering? Yeah. Unequivocally, no. It wasn't too long ago in this country that abortion was a crime. So it is not too much to say that this is the slope we could be going down.
If they're against also getting contraceptives, then how exactly are women supposed to have control over their own bodies in this country? And their lack of willingness to talk about sex education or to talk about sex at all is, to me, deeply disturbing.
The notwithstanding clause allows governments to override portions of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and protect their legislation from court challenges for a period of 5 years. In response, Poilievre's office had this to say, writing, quote, "In part, this outlandish claim shows the true desperation of Justin Trudeau and his flailing Liberals. A common-sense Conservative government will not legislate on abortion and therefore would never use this section of the Constitution pertaining to this matter." The Sunday strategy session is here to talk about all of that. Kathleen Monk is a former NDP strategist and director of communications to the late Jack Layton. Corey Tenike was Ontario Premier Doug Ford's campaign manager and former director of communications for Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And David Hurley was a top advisor to Prime Minister Paul Martin and is currently the principal partner at the Gandalf Group. Hi, everybody. Great to see you. David, I'll start with you. It's not new for the Liberals to accuse the Conservatives. They've done so with some success, of course, in the past two elections. Why do you think they're doing it potentially a year and a half out from the next election now?
Well, I think probably in part because Mr. Poilievre, I think, made a mistake with this notwithstanding clause business. I don't think he needed it for the criminal law argument he wants to make, and I think he has opened this issue up. And of course, it's a very, very live issue in the United States and likely to become more live as their election gets closer. So the reality is this is a terrific issue for the Liberal Party, and this moves votes away from Conservatives and toward Liberals, because this is an issue. Right now, Pierre Poilievre's in the middle of the mainstream on affordability. He's in the middle of the mainstream on housing, but he's not in the mainstream, and the Conservatives are not in the mainstream on a woman's right to choose. And so this is an issue the Liberal Party's used not just in the last 10 years, but for 30 years. And the reason it works is because the Conservatives are vulnerable to it. And as long as they don't seal off that vulnerability, this will continue to be an impediment for female votes.
Do you think that's true, Corey? And to the point of sort of sealing it off, the statement that Poilievre offered there was pretty unequivocal, but for some reason it doesn't seem to have convinced everyone that it is.
Well, because the Liberal approach on this is to make the accusation without any evidence to support it and say because you want to use the notwithstanding clause if required on criminal justice issues like catch and release of repeat offenders, that means you're going to somehow, regulate abortion despite every statement and the Conservative Party's, policy that passed in their last convention that they're going to do no such thing. Look, it's it is a time-honored technique and attack. I'll agree with David on that. But there's a time-honored attack from Conservatives on Liberals that I think has a lot more merit, and that's around criminal justice issues. And the courts have been at times an impediment to dealing with the issue, and so him saying that, I think, actually, favors the Conservatives.
Here's the quick caveat, and I totally take Corey's point there, Kathleen. The issue was the Globe. Marika Walsh at the Globe then followed up when he made those initial comments and said, "Hey, are you just going to use this on the not on the matters of criminality?" And they didn't rule out everything else until her article came out, and then the Conservatives said, "Actually, no, it's just that." And then they were, very specific in response to the claims that Liberals are making, but they didn't say it right away. And my guess is that opened them up to a little bit of this too.
It was a real error, as David said, on behalf of Pierre Poilievre to make those comments. And it was a gift, frankly, to both the Liberals and New Democrats. And what you're seeing, is basically Pierre Poilievre wants to, it's not only, what he's saying is not only dangerous to Canadians and their charter rights, it's actually dangerous to democracy, because essentially he wants to eliminate any kind of judicial function whatsoever. And I think that it's fair for New Democrats and for Liberals to extend the possibility that, frankly, Mr. Poilievre may extend this to both workers' rights, to women's rights to choose their reproductive choice, because we've seen premiers across the country do this in the past. We've seen Doug Ford run roughshod, frankly, over the freedom to speak on political issues in terms of advertising. That's also going to the Supreme Court in just around 10 or 11 days. We've seen Doug Ford also run roughshod over Labor's right to collectively bargain. We've seen Scott Moe, frankly, threaten to run roughshod with the notwithstanding clause to use it as well against trans kids' rights to use the pronouns that they want to choose. So it's not that dissimilar to imagine that Pierre Poilievre will use this, and frankly, it was a political mistake and a blunder.
Not many of them yet at this point, of all the provincial examples you provided that Kathleen provided, David, have suffered electorally because of what they did. I have noted very much so the blowback to it, and in Doug Ford's case he essentially had to walk it back, but they do have yet to suffer for it electorally. In this case, it would be the first time the federal government does it. I think, to Corey's point, I think the Conservatives do have a lead on the Liberals when it comes to issues around criminality. They were striking a chord on drug policy, on a bunch of other stuff. I don't know why he needed to say this that opened him up to all this other stuff.
Well, I don't think there's any political blowback to using the notwithstanding clause, which is deeply unfortunate because I think it shouldn't even be in the charter. But nonetheless, that's a different point, to be honest. This is about abortion and a woman's right to choose. And the reason why the Conservatives are vulnerable on this, and the reason why it works as an issue, is because they're the only party that has a significant number of people in it who don't believe in a woman's right to choose. Quite usually their leader is included in that. Now, in this particular case, Mr. Poilievre is saying, I won't do that, but he's not saying in any convincing way that he believes in a woman's right to choose. Canadians have just seen a bunch of prospective Supreme Court justices in the United States say, I don't believe in a woman's right to choose, but I won't change it. And then as soon as they got there, changed it. So I don't think that women trust Conservatives on this, and frankly, I don't think they should.
My guess is, Corey, I'll get your response to that, but also my guess is that the way in which this is unfolding and has been unfolding in the United States will provide a welcome background for the Liberals as they attempt to make this case.
Look, it is a classic ad hominem attack, and I notice my two esteemed colleagues didn't bring up where the notwithstanding clause is used all the time, and that is the province of Quebec, without even a comment or a mention by either of them. The province of Quebec uses notwithstanding clause in essentially every piece of legislation that their legislature passes. And, although David doesn't like it, there would be no charter if there was not a notwithstanding clause. And so, to cherry pick which parts of the Constitution you want is, in my view, a violation of the Constitution. And the accusation that you're going to restrict a woman's right to choose by the Liberals and NDP without any basis in doing so is, let's just call it politics as usual in the Liberal Party.
I guess the big question is, I think to both Corey and David's points, it has been politics as usual for a long time. Often some of the Conservative leaders, I'm thinking of Andrew Scheer, for example, more specifically, gave some oxygen to that by being, sort of lack of a position, of a clear position. In this case, he is saying very specifically what he wouldn't do. He has said it in a debate that he's pro-choice. Does he need to say it more, or will that never convince?
There's a couple of things that are making it problematic for Pierre, no matter what he has declaratively said. Number one, the past week there was the March for Life. His MPs were out there speaking to those anti-choice protesters.
Just a few of them, though,
just a few for sure, but still they're calling themselves conservatives, and they were speaking on behalf of the conservative movement. Another thing, more importantly, is how you've seen New Democrats and Liberals try to wedge the Conservatives on the pharmacare bill, and specifically around denying women access to free contraception and birth control and reproductive choice. And actually what's interesting is now the Liberals are planning to, with New Democrats, fast track that bill to actually get it passed in a record time. And because they believe this issue, as David raised before, about women's right to choose, women's reproductive choice, is a key one for women's voters, and they don't trust Poilievre on the issue.
I'd only say that the Liberals have yet to detail exactly how that will roll out, and the money is spread over a number of years. So even if it does pass, they haven't said immediately you're going to get that.
But it's a policy that women want. They want to have access to free birth control, and that is
it's a convenient political wedge for sure. They just haven't actually told women when they're going to get it. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks everyone. Thanks to our Sunday strategy session, David Hurley, Corey Tonight, and Kathleen Monk. When we come back, the Scrum will be here. We're going to talk about the Fed's fight with public service unions and what to watch for in the final weeks of the House of Commons sitting. Marika Walsh, Najud Al-Maliz, and Joël Denis Bellavance are with me on the other end of a very short break. Stay right there.
For all the unpredictability. Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Good evening. Happy Mother's Day. Give yourself a little extra time en route to Mom's, because if you're coming down the Laurentian southbound, that's busy again from Blainville through to Sainte-Thérèse. There's a crash at the tracks after they had dealt with whatever was cooking on the Gédéon Bridge. 15 south, at least that's 640 east. Urbanova crash that lasted a couple of hours is history, and everything is cleared out over there. Papineau-Leblanc Bridge, you're out of luck all weekend to and from Laval. Met West is stop and go. Lacordaire to Carrie, bit of a gap there. Nice one between d'Iberville and the start of the Laurentian Autoroute interchange. Then it's busy to Décarie. Laurentian South also costing you some time leaving Laval as of Saint-Martin, and then again Henri Bourassa down to the Met. Where on the 40 eastbound side, it's slow from Côte de Liesse to Saint-Laurent to Carrie North. Côte Saint-Luc to the top, a delay there, and an even more intense 120 east from the 138th to Ville-Saint-Pierre interchange all the way to Turcotte, with the 136 east closure throughout the weekend from Turcotte to Ottawa. Upgrade to better, upgrade to Mazda, and get a $1,500 Mazda bonus on any CX-5 2024 Turbo. Discover their offers at your Mazda dealer. I'm Mark Shalhoub. Your next CJAD 800 traffic report at 6 o'clock.
95.9 Virgin Radio is your hit music station. Hear the hits first from your favorite artists. Montreal's #1 hit music station.
95.9 Virgin Radio.
The Trudeau Liberal government better prepare itself for a summer of discontent. Workers are incredibly frustrated and outraged, and they'll be taking to the streets and their workplaces in concerted, coordinated actions across the country.
As we heard earlier in the show, public service unions are promising their employer a turbulent summer after the feds told them they'll have to work from the office 3 days a week. Meanwhile, that summer is getting ever closer, I should say, with MPs back in their ridings this week before a 5-week final stretch of sitting until the House rises, not to return until mid-September. So is there a political risk in this fight with the union for the feds? And what are the other big political stories to keep your eyes on as we head into the last leg of this parliamentary sitting? The Scrum is here to talk about that. Marika Walsh is a senior political reporter with the Globe and Mail. Najoud Al-Malise is a reporter with the Canadian Press. And Joël Denis Belvance is the Ottawa bureau chief for La Presse. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Najoud, I'll start with you. It seems like the government was almost taken a bit by surprise that the Treasury Board Secretariat had made this, and a French newspaper had leaked that this was going to happen. Do you think they wear any of this, or is public sentiment kind of on their side?
I think it'll depend on how the government handles this moving forward. What we heard from the government on this issue didn't really shed much light into why they want these workers in person. They didn't really talk about necessarily what the dynamics are like in the office. How is this affecting services? On the flip side, the unions haven't really made a clear case as to what exactly the problem is in terms of coming in person, other than feeling blindsided by this.
Yeah, they're definitely blindsided, JD. I think they're also kind of calling out the idea that they don't feel like they have a great workspace to come into. And I think Najoud hit the nail on the head. Like, the government may have a good reason for this. They just need to say what it is.
Explain it properly, to the employees and to Canadians. But, in GAD, we live on the Quebec side here, and I've had some friends who work in the public service sector, and they told me scary stories about what they did find in their office a few years ago. Bats, smell of skunks, and other bad smells in the office. And most of the office on the Quebec side is under renovation. So public servants have to fight for an office space when they go to work, and they have to put their name in advance, and it becomes sort of a cumbersome exercise for them to go to work now. The question I think the federal government has to ask their employees, where are they more productive? Is it at home? Is it a combination of part home, part at work? And that would be the bottom line. Where are they more productive, and where it brings more services to Canadians? At home, working hybrid, or in the office? That remains to be seen. We haven't seen any real studies about that.
Yeah, and I think if they did feel like, Marika, this did, and they had some evidence to show, like, I think that the public service will be more productive if they're there 3 instead of 2 days. I think that would convince a lot of Canadians. They'd be open to that argument, but like I said, they have yet to present that.
Yeah, they haven't presented it. I don't really think anybody's making a very good argument right now. I think if the union's argument is that it's unsafe or unhealthy workplace conditions, then that should be their message. Right now, the message that's coming across is, I don't want to go to work. And that's not a winner for the taxpayers who are funding their salaries, right? Who are at work, or who are schlepping their way through traffic in Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver to get to where their employers expect them to be. On the flip side, the government hasn't articulated the reasoning behind it in any meaningful way other than, we can do this so we want to do it. And I think that's in part because it's not really a political winner no matter what they say.
Yeah, probably explains why what they've said so far, the sum total is, this is not part of the collective agreement, so it's all right. Speaking of which, let's turn the table for a second and just look ahead to the rest of the time that parliamentarians will be here in Ottawa after the next week when they're back in their constituencies. Najoud, there's a new jobs report out that was surprisingly better than expected, but may not be better for Canadians who were hoping for a sure thing when it comes to a rate cut at the bank's next decision. Are you going to be watching for that?
Yeah, I think the June interest rate decision is going to be extremely important politically speaking. It's the last rate decision before MPs go back home for the summer. And, as you said, this jobs report shifted expectations more towards a July rate cut. It hasn't ruled it out yet, so let's not, jump the gun there. But if there is no rate cut in June, the MPs don't have a great message to bring back to Canadians when they go home, and clearly that's going to open the door for Pierre Poilievre to come out and say, hey, the Prime Minister promised you interest rates are coming down. They haven't come down, and you have no idea when they will.
Yeah, I think last summer, if I think back to that, JD, was a real turning point for Liberals when they went back to their constituencies and then brought that message back to caucus. Like, that's when things started to fall apart.
The barbecue season, which is critical for politics. And a few things I'll be watching over the next few weeks, the remaining weeks of this session. First, whether Mr. Poilievre and the Conservative Party will vote in favor or the capital gains tax. That's a major issue. And that
I'm betting yes.
You're betting yes, and you convinced me with your bet. I'm betting with you now. And that would be sending a very strong signal to the business community that they have to fend for themselves now. They have no political vehicle that could bring their message to Ottawa. Secondly, I know Mr. Trudeau, I said he wants to run again in the next federal elections, but I'll be watching how he behaves by the end of this session. And that, I think, to me, that's the time limit for him to decide whether he runs again. He says so, but to really convince us that that's his decision, I think by the end of June we'll have a clear picture.
I think you're totally right on the timing question. Marika, last word to you.
I think also the capital gains vote, but I think the other two votes or bills that are interesting to watch are the labor bill on anti-scab as well as pharmacare, because those are the other two interesting points where there could be differences with the Conservatives or not. And it shows where the Conservatives are sort of navigating their coalition. I think more broadly for the Liberals, almost the canary in the coal mine is going to be the St. Paul's by-election. I think it will be called sooner rather than later. That is supposed to be one of their safest seats, and I think that will be a really big test for the Liberals. Either it's going to be something that bolsters them heading into the summer, or it's going to be just another big downer, as JD says, Trudeau sort of makes the final yes or no decision this summer.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Our Sunday Scrum, Marika Welsh, Najoud Almalise, and JD Bellavance. That does do it for us here at Question Period this week. Thank you so much for watching. A very happy Mother's Day to all the other moms out there. I'm Vashi Capellas. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Power Play. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
It's finally spring.
You know what that means, Karine.
Road trip season.
Why not kick it off in the new 2024 Rogue? It features a 1.5-liter VC turbo engine and great fuel efficiency to power you through every getaway.
Okay, give me the keys.
Lease a 2024 Nissan Rogue S with all-wheel drive from $399 a month for 24 months during the Spring Into Savings event. In stock now. Hurry in.
Until May 31st, retail value of $36,497, down payment of $1,649 on approved credit. Conditions apply. Details at Nissan.
Are you tired of stubbing your toe on your sinking walkway or pool patio? No need to replace it, lift it. Acton offers free evaluations and financing to fit your budget. Acton.ca, the concrete and foundation specialists. Call Acton for action.
Last year's #1 Canadian drama is on CTV.
I thought I was strong enough to handle it all.
I'd rather have control of my life than leave it up to chance.
But isn't life all about taking chances?
Sullivan's Crossing, new episode, Sunday at 8, 9 Mountain on CTV.
You're listening to the Voice of Montreal. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800, an iHeart radio station.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
20 minutes over the 40 eastbound single-lane Dillatort Bridge, almost from the Avenue Saint-Charles entrance. The 20 eastbound on the approach to the Gallipo is a breeze. 20 west, 520 west, heading to Trudeau International Airport. 15 minutes a pop in the off-ramps. Over at the 15 south at the tracks, a couple of lanes blocked there up in Sainte-Thérèse after the latest incident on that front. It's backing folks to Boulevard de la Seigneurie, at least 640 eastbound at Urbanova. That incident is long gone. Over on the Metropolitan westbound, that is busiest now only between the two 15s. 40 eastbound's off and on Côte de Liesse to Saint-Laurent. Laurentian South is choppy from de Salaberry to the Met. To carry south slow over the top third. To carry north the top half. 20 east thick. Angrignon to Turcotte with the exit onto the Ville-Marie east. The 136 east closed on all fronts save for to carry south onto the Ville-Marie east where you have to get off at Atwater. Wherever you fly, Air Transat offers warm and friendly service every step of the way. Take off on new adventures that start and finish with a smile. I'm Mark Chaloup, CJAD 800 Traffic and Transit every 15 minutes, next at 6:15.
Tonight, police open a homicide investigation after a body is found in the plateau. Pro-Palestinian protesters set up a new encampment, this time at UQAM. And 3 continents, 3 women united by a DNA kit after more than 40 years.
CTV News with Angela Mackenzie.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Montreal police are investigating the city's 10th murder of the year. It happened overnight in the Plateau Montréal district. And Stéphane, police found a body of a man in an alleyway on Park Avenue.
Angela, it's a passerby who discovered the body of the 33-year-old man. That's in the alley behind a gas station at the corner of Park Avenue and Mount Royal. First responders tried to revive the man and when he was found at 5 a.m., but he was declared dead on location. Injuries on his body led police to consider that it was a suspicious death. Police did not say the nature of the injuries, but quickly concluded it was murder. This led to a very important deployment of police resources as crime scene investigators had to close Park Avenue and Mount Royal in both directions throughout most of the day at this otherwise very busy intersection, even on weekends. Now, by late this afternoon, police say they were still on the scene, but that no arrests were made. We'll hear right now from police spokesman Jean-Pierre Brabant.
After investigation, after looking at some surveillance cameras and information that we're able to gather, we're able to confirm that there was a murder that was committed on that man in his 30s. So from there, the investigation was transferred to the major crime unit of the Montreal Police. We've established a command post here on Avenue du Parc in Mont-Royal. So investigators will be assisted by crime scene technicians. They'll do the analysis of the scene.
So police, of course, are asking anyone with information to call 911. Angela?
All right, thanks very much, Stefan. Well, after McGill University, pro-Palestinian student activists have moved on to occupy a second institution in Montreal. This time, it's UQAM, the Université de Québec à Montréal. Activists have set up a fenced-off camp within the science campus near the intersections of Jean Mance and Sherbrooke. The students say their demands are the same as those heard on other campuses in North America, mainly that the school divest from companies with ties to Israel. They also want Quebec to close its diplomatic office in Israel and are asking for any court challenges to dismantle student encampments be withdrawn.
It's the same as everywhere else. UQAM is complicit. It's funding companies. It's funding. We have a campus in Tel Aviv, and it's funding the genocide happening. So we had to get up. We had to do something about it.
This is the first French language university in Quebec to join the campus protests. Well, the pro-Palestinian encampment at McGill University is now in its third week as protesters wait to hear whether McGill will be granted a temporary injunction to have the camp dismantled. The university is asking a judge to authorize police to remove the tents, citing health and safety concerns. Meantime, students at a similar camp in the University of Toronto are alleging officials are conducting surveillance of the pro-Palestinian protesters. Natalie Johnson reports.
10 days into the encampment at the University of Toronto, the pro-Palestinian protesters insist their calls for action are still being ignored.
And the administration continues to ignore our three simple demands, which are to divest, disclose, and cut all ties with Israeli academic institutions.
And at the campus's King's College Circle, which the protesters now call the People's Circle for Palestine, they are alleging they are being watched and recorded by cameras and are concerned about the use of facial recognition technology.
When we see surveillance technology that's being used by the Toronto Police Services, it's hard to believe that's being done with safety concerns in mind. It seems far more likely with the historical evidence that we have that it's being done with the possibility of a crackdown that can happen at any minute now, and that they have an enormous amount of data stored on us that they can then use to justify the violence they use when they want to clear us.
Toronto police, meantime, say they are not conducting surveillance of the encampment site, adding unless there is a security or public safety concern, police involvement will only occur at the university's request. The university has not requested our assistance at this time.
Putting up temporary structures is not allowed.
A different story in Alberta, where police dismantled tents and removed protesters at the University of Calgary Thursday night, following similar action by law enforcement on several U.S. campuses.
I think there's a real reason to be concerned that this consistent misrepresentation of the student demonstrators as anti-Semitic is laying the groundwork for the kind of police repression that we have seen on U.S. campuses.
U of T writing in a statement, our goal remains to find a peaceful conclusion to the unauthorized encampment as soon as possible, without the risk of violent confrontation or physical injury. The protesters, though, maintain they feel threatened by the possibility of surveillance, saying that kind of policing would contravene their rights.
It turns the university as a space for free exchange of ideas into a space of criminalization of dissent and contravenes the very purpose of the university itself.
The school says it isn't looking to limit students' right to protest, but is asking them to dismantle the encampment. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
The Legault government has refused a request by seniors advocates to open CLSC clinics 24/7. Advocates want the CLSC to become the entry point to the health system for seniors and the right to receive care inside their own homes. Matt Gilmore reports.
Quebec's population is aging. By the end of this decade, 25% of Quebecers will be over the age of 65. And when it comes to home care, seniors advocates say already the system is overwhelmed.
Only, something like 10 or 15% of the present requests or needs are met.
Pierre Lynch is with the Coalition for the Dignity of Seniors, who this week called for around-the-clock access to home care and support services through CLSC clinics.
Elders can have the resources to answer their needs and wants. So we need to have, like a specialized nurses or a geriatric professional down at the other end.
At the National Assembly, Seniors Minister Sonia Bélanger agreed that CLSCs should be the main entry point for seniors, but dismissed the idea of keeping them open 24/7.
C'est mal connaître la vision des CLSC.
She says the clinics are there to organize local services in a community, not to provide emergency services.
It's not a question of lack of understanding. It's a lack of action.
Lynch says seniors are tired of constantly being told their needs are a priority.
Since the last 2 or 3 elections, and every time they're saying that, elderlies are very important, that we need to do something for them. But when we come to deliver the product, it ain't there.
He says access to universal 24/7 home care is what seniors want. It means keeping their autonomy longer and living a life of dignity. Matt Gilmore, CTV News.
We turn now to northern British Columbia, where about 3,000 people have been forced out of their homes because of a wildfire burning out of control. The fire is now 17 square kilometers in size and is fast approaching Fort Nelson. Camille Caramali reports.
Hear it, and then Deborah's dropping me off at my place.
Flames burn along a highway in northeast BC. Residents frantically fleeing Fort Nelson as the Parker Lake wildfire grows, now more than 25 square kilometers in size.
We are expecting a wind event that will come from the west. If we get anything like the winds we had on Friday when this started up, 70 kilometers an hour, there's not much that's going to be able to stop this fire.
There are at least 6 uncontrolled wildfires across the country. The wildfire in northeast BC inching closer to Fort Nelson. An evacuation order has the more than 3,000 residents forced to pack their belongings and leave their homes. In Alberta, a couple of out-of-control fires, one near Grand Prairie, has resulted in an evacuation order for parts of the surrounding county. And an evacuation alert near Fort McMurray has residents there ready to leave at a moment's notice.
We're seeing cooler temperatures, some overcast skies, and less wind. So all of that is good news for the region.
In northern Manitoba, a massive wildfire near the mining city of Flin Flon has resulted in an evacuation order for a number of homes and cottages, growing to 35,000 hectares and now putting other municipalities at risk. And because of all the wildfire smoke, Environment Canada has now issued a special air quality statement extending from BC all the way to Ontario. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
For the first time ever, girls under 18 can now play football in Quebec. The competitive league launched this spring. Teams were in action today in Laval. Olivia O'Malley reports.
Girls contact football is finally taking the field in Quebec.
We want the girls to have room to play for as long as they want.
The Quebec Women's Minor Football League is in its first season. Girls aged 15 to 17 can play, and there are 5 teams in the league: the North Shore, Laval, Gatineau, Montreal, and the South Shore. Before this year, players had to travel to Ontario if they wanted to play against other girls.
So we were going up 2 times a week, maybe 3 sometimes.
The games are 6-a-side and played on a smaller field. The league follows Canadian football rules, so there are 4 10-minute quarters. Organizers say this is most girls' first time ever even playing the sport. Micah Hoyer was a cheerleader for 9 years before making the switch.
Well, cheer is expensive, and I also wanted a sport where I could sprint and catch a football because I love the ball.
Others who played with boys say the size difference was difficult.
I honestly really love playing with girls because I get to play positions that I don't normally get to play with boys because of my physique.
While it is a contact league, Gatineau Valkyrie's head coach Sonia Rohde says she's trying to teach the girls to tackle properly.
When you play within girls, the hits are big, but it's not crazy. You know, girls are smart. They play smart.
There are around 15 to 20 players on each team, and they are constantly recruiting.
The stakes are not high, you don't have too much pressure, you're just trying to learn something new, and you're making history, so that's why it's more fun.
Those involved hope more girls join so more teams can be created and the league can go the long run. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News.
Well, it's a heartwarming Mother's Day story. 3 women living on 3 different continents have been united after more than 40 years, all thanks to a DNA test. As Daniel Rowe reports, they're now making up for lost time.
Diana Angarita always knew she had a sister. Her mother talked about her often.
Actually, she always talking about Xiomara that I felt jealous. I told my sister, seriously, Xiomara, you were not in, she was not there, because we couldn't meet her. I couldn't meet her when I was a child, but I always knew that she was there, that she exists, but she didn't know that about me.
Diana's mother, Carmen Angarita, grew up an orphan in Bogota, Colombia. She gave birth in 1981 to her sister, Xiomara. She had nowhere to live, and her daughter had health issues. Carmen had a tough choice to make. She said, I didn't have an option to raise her. So she gave her up for adoption, but she always thought about her. I really missed her, Carmen says, and I was very sad when I had to give her up. But this year, the 3 women's lives changed. Diana's husband gave her a MyHeritage test and app for her birthday. The couple was curious about her ethnicity.
I have in my mind it was so hard to get, to find her. So it was this kind of the story, like a fairy story that you can, like a dream come true, like something that you are not imagining because you think that is so hard to get it.
In the app, you can see your ethnicity as well as any DNA matches. It is through these matches that Diana found her sister living in the Netherlands, who had kept her birth name, Xiomara. Diana immediately reached out on social media.
I'm a little bit impulsive, so when I found her, in the app it says half sister, so I said, oh my goodness, I'm finding my sister, it's real. I text her. Actually, I start to, it's like a stalking because I start to looking for her everywhere in LinkedIn, in Facebook.
The two soon connected and set up a Zoom call with their mother.
Yes, I'm your daughter, and I hope to see you very soon. And I'm very, very glad that I know now that you are alive and you always think about me.
Yo me puse muy contenta.
I was very happy, she says. I almost cried from happiness. It was very beautiful to know that I also have a grandson. I was waiting for her for a long time.
I think that it was like the best day of my life. You know, like, yeah. It was actually the best gift ever. Thanks to my husband.
Diana, Xiomara, and Carmen are all hoping to meet in person for the first time in December and spend the holidays as a family. Daniel J. Rowe, CTV News.
Weather brought to you by Gratian Scout Sun Event. Get a second pair of clear or prescription sunglasses as a gift.
Turning to weather now, it's currently 16 degrees in Montreal and partly cloudy. Cloudy periods will continue overnight. Your 7 to 7 day planner. Monday will be cloudy in the morning with showers developing in the afternoon, a high of 19. And for the rest of the week, wet weather continues for the first half of the week, but sunny skies are on the horizon starting Thursday. When we return, more warnings against an Israeli ground invasion of Rafah. And protecting elected officials from threats, the RCMP wants lawmakers to help.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Happy Mother's Day, and we have a slow go down the Laurentian southbound. The 15 is filling in Blainville, Boulevard de la Seigneurie through until the tracks in Sainte-Thérèse. A couple of lanes blocked by a crash there. Less intense, Laurentian south on the Montreal side of the Back River / Médéric Martin Bridge, feeling it from Henri Bourassa down to the Met, where it's slow from Stinson through until Sainte Croix. Eastbound side is off and on from Côte de Liesse on the 40 through until Saint-Laurent. To carry north and southbound, some top third sluggishness as there is 20 east for about 10 minutes before Anguignon to Turcotte as you're funneled onto either side of the 15 with the 136 east weekend long closure. Turcotte to Ottawakan, save for motorists coming down to Carey, able to get off at Atwater on the 136. And if you want the La Fontaine, that's 20 minutes almost from Sherbrooke 7 via Souligny East. Inbound fills in after De Mortagne. For the barbecue season, enter Adonis Market for fresh, tasty meats until May 15th. Beef tenderloin brochettes at $14.99 per pound. I'm Mark Shalhoub, CJAD 800 Traffic and Transit every 15 minutes, next at 6:30.
The fire crackles as you toast a marshmallow to golden brown perfection. The light flickers and dances off your lustrous new Toyota, which charges to the sound of a cricket chirping. Wait, no. Yep, that's a mosquito. Anyway, one thing's for sure, this moment isn't just a dream. It's an invitation to escape. So stop dreaming. Red Tag Days are on at Toyota. Take this opportunity to shop for a 2024 BZ4X. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Quebec Toyota dealer today.
Until May 26th at Première Moisson Bakeries, the organic sprouted grain loaf with Charlevoix wheat is only $4. This organic bread, baked fresh daily by our artisan bakers, contains 8 sprouted grains. It's a delicious way to save from Première Moisson, a proud Quebecois company.
So Dan, how's life in the fast lane? Not great. I've lost control. Are you hitting the brakes? My internet's out of gas. No worries. We'll just watch the race on your TV. Bit of a bump in the road. I don't even have sports channels. Crash and burn, buddy. Sorry for the false start. I'm driving on empty.
Switch to Bell and get 500 internet, your favorite TV channels, including sports and Crave, for only $89 per month. Visit bell.ca to check availability. Bell. Switching just got better.
It's time for the Kia Electric Revolution with the Kia EV6 GT with 576 horsepower, which does 0 to 100 in 3.6 seconds. Get into EV6 GT mode at Mega Kia Brassard. Available now.
Mega Kia Brassard.
Oh, can't. My goldfish has a tummy ache.
Avoid useless excuses on moving day. Subscribe to our 500 megabit per second, 100% fiber internet plan at $45 monthly, and you could win free internet for a year or have eBox help cover your movers. eBox, it's just what you need. No purchase necessary. Details at ebox.ca.
Introducing Tim's new flatbread pizza. Served hot out of the oven in 4 delicious flavors with Simply Cheese. Starting from $6.99 plus tax. There's a new Tim's run in town. Try one today. Terms and conditions apply at participating restaurants in Canada.
When big news happens,
the campus protest at McGill is growing.
Montrealers know where to turn.
150 firefighters battled the out-of-control fire.
Watch CTV News at 6 and visit ctvnewsmontreal.ca.
There are fresh warnings today from top American officials against an Israeli invasion of Rafah. This as Israel steps up its military operation in the region. Jeremy Charron has the latest.
Across the enclave, fighting has re-intensified. Israeli forces pushing back into the north, battling Hamas fighters in areas they previously said they controlled. In Rafah, evacuations continue. Hundreds of thousands have fled. We're tired and lost. We don't know where to go, this man says. They've been ordered to leave by Israel as it intensifies its military pressure here.
Israel appears to be pursuing its previous strategy where it sort of goes not block by block, but neighborhood by neighborhood in an attempt to rout fighters and first giving civilians an opportunity to try to clear out of those neighborhoods.
This despite new fresh pushback today from Washington against military operations in Rafah.
Going into to Rafah, even to deal with these remaining battalions, especially in the absence of a plan for civilians, risks doing terrible harm to civilians and not solving the problem, a problem that both of us want to solve, which is making sure Hamas cannot again govern Gaza.
Israel says it's still enabling the flow of aid into the enclave, but humanitarian aid organizations say they're running out of food. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem today, at an annual Memorial Day ceremony for fallen soldiers, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to keep fighting Hamas in Gaza in memory of soldiers and civilians killed on October 7th. Keep going until victory, and that's how we'll do it, he said.
The White House says the U.S. and Israel's top security advisors spoke today about Rafah. Israel is said to be taking the U.S.'s concerns into account. Jeremy Sherrill, CTV News, Ottawa.
Russian officials say at least 7 people were killed and more than a dozen injured after a Ukrainian missile strike in the Russian border city of Belgorod. Russia says an entire section of a 10-story apartment block collapsed. The local governor says massive shelling was carried out by the Ukrainian army. The Russian Defense Ministry adds air defenses shot down several more rockets over the Belgorod region, as well as 2 drones. And the Russian attack on Kharkiv continues as Moscow says it has captured 5 villages in Ukraine's northeastern region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says they are rushing in reinforcements to strengthen its defensive positions in the regional capital. The head of the RCMP wants to see a new law criminalizing threats made against elected officials. RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhem says they are seeing an increase in insults, abuse, and threats aimed at politicians, but those do not always meet the threshold for criminal charges. He wants the government to draft new laws that would make it easier for Mounties to investigate and lay charges. With gang violence on the rise, the province of British Columbia has unveiled plans for a new policing team focused on solving gang-related murders. The squad will operate within the RCMP. Rob Buffman has more.
A barrage of bullets, a terrifying attack in White Rock in February that left 4 men wounded. Or this brazen daylight gunfire in downtown Vancouver in April, both believed to be gang-related. Crimes that are on the rise in BC, motivating the government to announce a new integrated gang homicide unit.
All British Columbians deserve to feel safe from gang violence. The impacts that these events have on communities are significant and are felt well beyond victims and their families.
Gang-related killings make up nearly half of all homicides in BC. This new unit will be comprised of 18 members from existing agencies, including the RCMP's Integrated Homicide Unit, which it will operate under.
This specialized unit will be at the forefront of tackling key gang-related homicides and enhancing intelligence sharing on gang operations throughout the Lower Mainland.
Law enforcement says organized crime or gang investigations are often more complicated than other cases, citing the example of the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a prominent Sikh activist, gunned down in 2023. One challenge, getting scared witnesses to testify.
These gangsters they're present for their buddy getting gunned down, they don't want anything to do with the police.
The province says the new unit will allow for better information sharing and a team dedicated to solving these complex crimes, but some are skeptical.
It's a political announcement. We're just moving pieces of the puzzle around rather than creating the overall puzzle.
This former police chief and solicitor general says what's really needed is a regional police force in Metro Vancouver, not more subunits.
You're all working towards one particular cause, and you're working towards holding one person to account, that being the officer in charge of Metro Vancouver.
The new team is a pilot project expected to be fully in action by the end of the year. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
Still to come, what are the best ways to help bees and other pollinators at home? And the content creator helping people brew the best cup of joe.
At Desjardins, we're here to help with all your home projects. Financing your first semi-detached or a split level with garage attached. Renewing the mortgage on your condo, refinancing your bungalow for a big reno. It would look great, you know. No matter your project, let us guide you through every step of the financing process. Learn about our offers and special rates. Visit Desjardins.com/homeowner. On approved credit by Desjardins.
At Hydro Solution, we install water heaters, charging stations, and even heat pumps. That's how we roll. We get it done. Get it done as in we deliver, we install, we remove, we screw in, we strengthen, we measure, we level, we pet your dog because he's so cute. We unplug, we reconnect, we assemble, we calibrate, we adjust, we test, we fasten, we pick up, and we only leave once all the work is done. Hydro Solution. We rent, we sell, we install. We get it done. All of it.
Your pharmacist owners affiliated to Jean Coutu are available at the pharmacy to welcome you, listen to your concerns, and offer advice. Thanks to the Jean Coutu Health app, they also provide you with a way to access your health record anytime, anywhere. So you can order a prescription during your lunch hour, pay for it while waiting for your coffee, and pick it up whenever it's ready. Or simply choose home delivery. Ask for your access code at the prescription counter and download the Jean Coutu Health app today.
They're called Cuisine West Island because they made their name manufacturing and installing new kitchens. But why stop there? Transform your entire home with Cuisine West Island the way you like it. Contemporary, modern, country, urban, kitchens, bathrooms, or built-in furniture. Everything is designed and manufactured right here in Montreal and installed by the professional team at Cuisine West Island. Pop in and see for yourself at 2758 St. Charles in Kirkland or at cuisinewestisland.com. Cuisine West Island, for those not easily impressed.
Hey, Nissan.
Corinne, I got you
Flowers? Why?
We're celebrating spring and the redesigned 2024 Nissan Sentra. It features a bold new front design and is equipped with dynamic driving technology and zero-gravity seats.
Oh, like a bouquet of innovative features.
Nice. Lease the 2024 Nissan Sentra S Plus from $277 a month for 24 months during our Spring Into Savings event. In stock now. Hurry in.
Until May 31st, retail value of $26,917. Down payment of $2,199 on approved credit. Conditions apply. Details at Nissan.
Honey, I'm going to buy tools and or materials at Canac, the hardware store with ridiculous prices.
Wait, I'll go with you to Canac, the hardware store with ridiculous everyday prices.
Mom, Dad, you okay? You sound like a bad ad.
You're being ridiculous, son.
But not as ridiculous as Canac's prices.
Good one, dear wife. High five.
Canac has made you totally nuts.
Nuts about low prices.
Another good one, dear wife.
Hey guys, what's up?
Our parents are ridiculous.
Not as ridiculous as Canac's prices.
This ridiculous ad was brought to you by the ridiculous prices at Canac.
Getting the urge to redecorate? Now's the time. It's Seco Days. Save up to 50% on Seco's best paints. Paints we're proud of for projects you'll be proud of. Hurry! Deal ends May 15th. Find your paint at seco.ca.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Happy Mother's Day and bon appetit as we have about a 10-minute roll 20 east before Angrignon into the ramps for either the 15 south or DeCarry north because you can't get onto the 136 east this weekend unless you're rolling down DeCarry and merging onto the 136 where you'll be forced off soon after at Atwater. You're looking at just a handful of minutes on the approach to departures or arrivals at Trudeau International Airport over the 40 eastbound single-laned Illitorp Bridge. That's 15 minutes before the Chemin des Chenaux Gatineau sector. Over on the Metropolitan eastbound, that's stop and go from Descaries to Saint-Laurent. The Met West feeling it from Stinson to Sainte-Croix as you are Laurentian South Henri Bourassa to the Met, but way more intense. 15 South Blainville to Sainte-Thérèse. A couple of lanes blocked there by a crash. Papineau-Leblanc Bridge up to and down from Laval closed the rest of the weekend as well. Canada Post ground shipments are carbon neutral. Last year alone, over 200 million carbon neutral packages traveled more sustainably across Canada. Learn more at canadapost.ca/greenergood. I'm Mark Shalhoub, CJAD 800 Traffic and Transit every 15 minutes. Next at 6:45.
Heart failure is the second leading cause of death in Canada after cancer, but experts say early diagnosis and treatment can be life-saving. Pauline Chan has more.
So we have the CN Tower being lit up. We have a Northern Lights display at BC Place.
Mark Baines hopes Canadians will be thinking about people like himself during Heart Failure Awareness Week.
I was 23 years old, and there was a misdiagnosis for almost a month and a half before I was actually told that I had heart failure. And I think that early diagnosis could have really changed my trajectory of care.
He lived with heart failure for 10 years before receiving a heart transplant, and he co-founded a group called Heart Life to educate people about heart failure.
Heart failure is a condition where the heart is not working properly, and it is unable to pump enough oxygenated blood forward to the rest of your body. So as a result, fluid backs up.
Dr. Stephanie Poon says it can be caused by a heart attack, which weakens the heart, or infection, or even heart disease from birth. But medications, along with daily exercise and limiting sodium intake, can allow patients to live longer, better lives.
Currently, over 800,000 Canadians are living with heart failure, and every year 100,000 new people are added to that list. It is basically one of the most common reasons why Canadians end up in hospital.
Poon says her main goal is to make sure Canadians recognize the symptoms of heart failure, shortness of breath, and fluid buildup, especially in the legs and abdomen.
The earlier you get started on treatment, the more likely it is that you're going to live a longer and better life, even though there is no cure for heart failure.
Pauline Chan, CTV News.
If you're planning a vacation, beware of scammers that use popular booking websites to post fake listings. Pat Foran with the story of a man who was scammed out of nearly $8,000.
Everything looked so legit.
Barry Good of Midland and his wife love to travel, and every winter they take an extended vacation.
At the end of January, we made a quick decision that we would go to Costa Rica for 3 weeks.
Good searched on Booking.com and found a villa for rent.
Booking.com found 61 other reviews that gave it a 9.8. So that's the first thing. Had a good rating.
When Good reached out to book the villa, the owner said he preferred to communicate using WhatsApp.
We got directed over to WhatsApp, and we started processing the payment through WhatsApp.
Good wired just over $7,700 to book the vacation spot, but after he did that, he couldn't get any more information, and then the listing changed.
The day after I accused them of using fake pictures and a fake listing, the pictures changed.
When Good complained to Booking.com, he was told he shouldn't have wired the funds, and he was offered $500 in compensation.
It doesn't, no matter what platform you're using, if it's Booking.com, if it's Airbnb, whatever, always communicate 100% through the booking platform.
Travel expert Lauren Christie says once you operate outside of a travel website, you lose many protections.
Never, ever send the money independently. You should never have that kind of an arrangement. Some of it should always be done through the booking platform.
After we contacted Booking.com, they agreed to review Good's case and told him, after reinvestigating the claim, we hereby offer to settle this matter and give you a full refund. Good was given back all his money, which was great news for him.
I can't say enough about CTV News and the job that Consumer Alert is doing in taking on cases like mine. I thank you very, very much.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
There have been many initiatives in recent years, often through social media, for helping bees and other pollinators to thrive. But just how effective are things like the Dandelion Challenge and No Mow May? Joining me now is Guillaume Gregoire, researcher and professor of agriculture and food science at Laval University. Thank you for being here.
No problem, Angela.
So, Guillaume, most of these initiatives encourage people to delay mowing their lawns. So, can you explain what the theory is behind this?
So the theory behind it is that pollinators during winter, they basically go to sleep. So when they wake up in the spring, once temperatures start to raise, they're very hungry. So they want to feed as soon as possible. And they are generally, I would say, depend on the context, but there are very little food sources for them. And since dandelions are one of the first flowers to bloom, they could be useful in that context for pollinators.
So are these challenges really effective? I'm especially thinking of dandelions and clover. Can these help when you keep them flowering on the lawns? Can they help to save bees?
So first, I will say that we don't have any scientific data to back that up. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work, but it's hard for me to say that they actually do work. I would say it's probably context dependent, meaning that if you live in a neighborhood where there are different other different sources of food for pollinators, so if you have lots of trees, especially fruit trees, if there are other early blooming flowers, it might not be as essential to keep your dandelion on your lawns compared to if you live in a relatively new neighborhood where there are very little mature trees or other type of flowers.
Right, like some of these new subdivisions that come up may not have very many options. What else can the average person do to make an impact and to help those pollinators?
Well, I would say that that's one way of helping them. You could also, some people would prefer to have their lawn to mow it even in the spring. So for those people, they can, plant some other plants that are early flowering in their beddings, plant some fruit trees and other plants that are good for pollinators. And also it's important to do that not only in May or in the spring, but during the whole growing season. So if you really want to help the pollinators, you want to have different flowering species that will be blooming during the whole season. So you can plan your landscaping with that in mind, to be sure to select the right species.
Right, so things that, they sometimes talk about that like a cascade of flowering plants that happen through early spring all the way to the end of the fall. Like you have sort of a variety that keep on blooming.
Exactly, yeah. And there are plants that are known to be attractive to pollinators. The easiest thing to select those is to go to your nearby garden center and ask for those type of plants. They will be more than happy to help you select those.
You and your research team also discovered something quite interesting on lawns that had these diverse types of plants. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we did a research project a couple of years ago, both in Quebec City and in Montreal, where we went into existing lawns and planted different species. So we used a clover, a wild strawberry, creeping thyme, and some other species. And we wanted to see if by doing that, we would attract more pollinators compared to, regular grass type lawns. And what we discovered basically is that we didn't see any positive impact on pollinators because the existing lawns were already pretty diversified. So probably because of all the pesticide regulations we have in Quebec since about 20 years now, lawns are much more diversified than we think, or that the general public thinks. So if we just space our mowing for those lawns, they will be flowering, and so we didn't see any difference between our treatments and the regular lawns that we just mowed less regularly. And we also captured a lot more pollinators than we were expecting. So I'm not a pollinator expert, but one of my colleagues, who's an entomologist who was on the project with me, she was very surprised at the number of species that we captured. So we captured about, I would say, 85 to 90 species of pollinators, and we only counted bees and overflies. So it was a lot more diversified than we expected.
A lot more than I would have thought as well. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much. This was fascinating.
Thanks for the invitation.
It's a long-standing tradition in Ottawa. The Tulip Festival is officially underway. The opening ceremonies included a CF-18 flyover honoring Canadian veterans and the relationship between Canada and the Netherlands. Jackie Perez reports.
This is your first tulip? Yes. Tanushree Ghosh and her friends have come quite the distance to snap a photo with Ottawa's famous tulips.
I traveled from Toronto, then to Kingston, from Kingston to Ottawa.
I just hope the rain doesn't spoil it. The rain did make a brief appearance.
Oh wow, it's pouring now.
But that didn't stop the large crowds from making their way to the 72nd edition of the Canadian Tulip Festival.
Just a fun day out.
Flowers looking a lot nicer than like the past years.
We are having a perfect bloom. Our early bloomers are fully out, our mid bloomers are completely ready to go, and our late bloomers are actually just starting to have color on the buds.
Nearly 1 million tulips will be seen across Ottawa and Gatineau, including here at Commissioners Park, Majors Hill Park, and along the Rideau Canal. This year's event also honoring the Royal Canadian Air Force's 100 years of service. A special guest was in the crowd. 98-year-old Ron Shorty Moyes, an RCAF veteran who served as a tail gunner in the Second World War.
We dropped the markers for the bombing command to drop the food. The Princess Margaret, her husband, was one of the ones standing on the ground waving at us. I didn't know that at the time.
The festival commemorates the role of the Canadian troops in the liberation of the Netherlands and Europe. As a gift of gratitude, the Dutch government sends Canada tulip bulbs every year since 1945.
Well, I was honored to be invited. The Tulip Festival is one of the best festivals we have in Ottawa.
It's wonderful. I love it. All the tulips, this trip, worthwhile.
The 11-day festival includes daily movies in the park and a light and sound experience near Dow's Lake, as well as a drone show to close out the festival. Plenty of time to get outside, take in the tulips, and remember the special legacy. Jackie Perez, CTV News.
Well, if you own an espresso machine, you know that it can be difficult to figure it out, but there is help. It comes in the form of a YouTube channel. Spencer Turcott reports.
An absolutely overkill setup for home, but I'm a very lucky person.
Don't be fooled. This isn't an upscale coffee shop.
Come down the dark hallway, we enter into the studio.
It's inside Matt Stiver's Guelph apartment, and if you can't tell, he's a coffee connoisseur.
Coffee is as nuanced as wine, if not more nuanced in the processing methods, the origins.
The 29-year-old has his hands full.
I often joke that I work 9 to 5 as an engineer and then 5 to 9 as a content creator, and that's not much of a joke.
He started a YouTube channel called Lifestyle Lab, and the concept is simple.
I try to help people essentially make the correct buying decisions when venturing into the deep and scary ocean that is at-home coffee.
His passion began as a student at the University of Guelph when he started drinking coffee.
I bought my first espresso machine knowing nothing about it, and there was no one to teach me about it.
Stuck with the complicated contraption, knowing others were in the same boat, he decided to fill the gaps. So he began making videos showing people how the machines work and which ones to buy.
Anybody can go to a shop and look at one, but to see two working side by side and see them next to each other, that's kind of part of the value of the internet, is you can compare in a really easy way.
His channel has grown in many ways, moving from the living room of his apartment to a full-blown studio in one of the bedrooms.
So this is the new Flare Neo Flex.
And his audience has grown with it. Over 85,000 subscribers and nearly 23 million video views. Now big brands are sending him products to review, and he's making money doing it.
Probably one of the largest accomplishments in my life.
One day he may have to choose between his current career and his coffee content, but for now, he feels there's space for both.
Please like and subscribe if you want.
Staying confident and caffeinated. Spencer Turcott, CTV News, Guelph.
A pair of maritime landmarks are featured in a new Canada Post pre-posted photo cards. Jack Morse gives us a look.
The mighty Restigouche River, a New Brunswick gem, is one of 2 maritime places to receive their own stamp as part of Canada Post's From Far and Wide series to highlight the country's natural beauty and cultural landscapes. The second, Prince Edward Island's Point Prim Lighthouse, is one of just 3 round brick lighthouses in the country and the first built on PEI.
First and foremost, all those years ago, it saved a lot of lives.
which is incredibly important, whichever way you look at it.
This isn't the first time the historic lighthouse has been recognized. It features on a coin last year minted for the 150th anniversary of PEI joining Canada. Despite sparkling in silver, the real thing is even more striking.
Now it's a long way up to the top, but once you get here, you're treated with a beautiful view.
The lighthouse means a lot to people who live here. All have some connection, like the granddaughter of the lighthouse's longest-serving keeper.
Oh, it's just amazing. Like, I don't think back in the day he would have ever imagined that would have ever happened.
With modern marine navigation, lighthouses like this are becoming a thing of the past, but have begun to take on a new life as tourist attractions.
As an artist, you depict the things that are important to you and the things around you, and that's such an integral part of where I live.
The purpose of the stalwart guardian has changed over the decades, but it's still a pillar at the center of this community and now a national landmark. Jack Moore, CTV News, Point Prim, PEI.
Coming up, students go national with their Trivia Savvy.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
News, Laurentian southbound, that crash in Sainte-Thérèse at the tracks. History, so very light residual volume through there, and on the approach to the Metropolitan down the 15. The Met eastbound is stop and go, Décarie to Saint-Laurent. Westbound, a pinch from the Stinson entrance to Sainte-Croix. Sluggish over the top third of the Décarie Expressway on the southbound side. 10 minutes, 20 east from Angrignon until merging out of either side of the 15 with the exit for the 136 east, barred all weekend, that closure. Turcotte to Ottawakan, except for motorists coming down to Carey who are allowed to go on the 136 before getting funneled off at Atwater. To the South Shore, the only delay, La Fontaine, not so sweet 16 minutes from the Hochelaga Bend, 5 minutes via Soudigny East, 7 minutes inbound La Fontaine from the 132. Make it close to 15 minutes for the 40 east from before Chemin de Chenot, getting over the single-laned Tourte. Upgrade to better, upgrade to Mazda. Get 1.9% purchase financing for 36 months on any Mazda 2024 model. Discover their offers at your Mazda dealer. I'm Mark Shalhoub, CJAD 800 Traffic and Transit. Next, 7:03.
How much information can you pack in your brain? Premiers, capitals, characters from movies or books. High school trivia teams are tested on all of it. And next month, head to a national tournament in Ottawa. Sarah Plowman caught up with the top 2 teams in New Brunswick as they prepare.
Spell the plural of the word basis.
B-A-S-E-S.
Whatever facts are lodged in their brains, students spit out quickly. They could be quizzed on anything. In what city is the European headquarters of the United Nations?
Geneva.
For Canadian high school trivia teams, it's crunch time.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. Nationals are next month.
Oprah.
Oprah Winfrey is... How much stuff can you pack in your brain?
A surprising amount.
In Moncton, lists and notes mark whiteboards and walls. In Fredericton, students dive into textbooks. They're juggling AP exams, and any reading helps.
2 ln e to the power of 4. 8? Yes.
I take in a lot of information from reading a lot of things, and just kind of what sticks will stick and what doesn't stick will stick eventually when I probably read it again.
This is Jeopardy!
Jeopardy gives them ideas, especially one contestant.
I'm really inspired by Matea Roach there from Nova Scotia, who won all those games. I think she's pretty cool. And I read a lot of books. I'm always on Wikipedia and looking up stuff like that.
Krampus?
Yes.
Players lean on their interests.
Geography, pop culture, biology, and human physiology.
I like to just kind of have obscure knowledge that I can just whip out at any time.
Freeze.
Gold.
Success is part reflex, part recall. Curiosity is key.
I was going through my fridge and I saw a mini can of Pepsi and I was like, how many milliliters is this? And I was like, okay, remember that.
Unlike cramming for exams, students say this is fun.
It's not a mandatory, okay, I have to study now. It's I really want to do this because I love it so much.
Win or lose, they're guaranteed to gain a ton of knowledge. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
The story now of a woman from British Columbia who spent close to 50 years making the same birthday wish to find love. It never happened until one day, just when she'd pretty much given up. Here's Adam Sawatsky.
Oh, she was just so full of life.
As Karen Harrison looks back at pictures from her past, she recalls her perennial birthday wish.
I would blow out the candles and I'd wish for the same thing. I just need to find the love of my life.
It happened every year from the age of 6 until the day she turned 50, when she decided to stop wishing.
I think I had started to lose hope.
Well, Karen was grateful to have finally found comfort in the life she'd created for herself.
To me, it was a bit of sadness around it.
But then, a month later, Karen found herself looking through old yearbooks after receiving a friend request from an old classmate, John Evers.
We were both always very shy, and I could never approach her.
John and Karen were in grade 1 through grade 12 together, and never really friends, until decades later, Facebook suggested otherwise.
I said, "Do you remember me?" And she said, "Of course." It was, a little heart skipped a beat.
The connection was instant, the conversation effortless, and despite living provinces apart, Karen and John couldn't have felt closer, until, a couple months later, they finally met again. In person.
She walked in the room and it was
like, oh, my soul has finally found its other half.
I found someone who understood me.
These are happy tears.
Oh, yeah.
Over the next year, they moved to the same city. John proposed, Karen said yes, and then they both said, I do, 47 years after they first met.
I feel so grateful to John that he found me, because he was my dream come true.
Thanks to the reality of both committing to being fearlessly authentic and unconditionally loving.
She is my best friend.
I love him with everything I have.
And if you ask why, despite living 2 blocks from each other as kids and attending the same school for so long, why it took almost 50 years to find each other, they'll tell you that it can take time to learn what love isn't before appreciating what it truly is.
Hold on to hope, because when it's right, it's right.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, North Cowichan.
It was another thrilling overtime finish in the Professional Women's Hockey League semifinal series between Montreal and Boston.
Morin here for Boston. Down in the zone, out in front, a chance for Boston, and they scored!
Taylor Wenskowski scored in triple overtime to give Boston a 2-1 victory in Game 2 of their series. Boston also won 2-1 in overtime on Thursday. It's now a do-or-die situation for Montreal. They need to win Tuesday in Game 3 to stay alive. The Calgary Stampede has released its midway menu, and it's full of 50 new sweet, salty, and spicy creations. Terry Fikowski went to Stampede Park for a taste test.
Any Calgarian will tell you that one of the best parts of Stampede is the food. Now, I'm born and bred here. I've been going to Stampede since I was little, so for all intents and purposes, I'm going to be your expert on Midway food. Let's giddy up. Up first, we have a Gator pepperoni pizza. What's this all about?
We just wanted something wild for this year's Calgary Stampede. This is going to be the wildest pizza on the Midway.
Gigi, I could do another piece of this. Up next, we have the Spider. What is that, you ask? Hallie, tell us.
It is a soft shell crab with a salted garlic egg yolk sauce.
I'm a little nervous.
There's always kind of a mix of, oh, I'm not sure about that one, and wow, this is amazing. Our exhibitors do such a fantastic job year over year, really bringing that creativity and thinking outside the box.
The cowboy yaki, and this is a mouthful.
Filled with seaweed strips, chunks of octopus.
Yahoo! That is really chewy.
Okay, but really good.
Okay, we got momos on a stick. Can you ever go wrong with Indian dim sum? What is Stampede without the donuts? Am I right?
Our purple donuts are an ube extract, so it visually packs a punch, but the flavor is very nice and sweet and mild.
I'm gonna take the whole bit. I'm not sharing. Up next, Aloha lemonade, and I'm told the spicy one's the one to try. Refreshing. Stampede is not complete without a little bit of brisket, but this is called
Jackie la Vaquera, Jackie the cowgirl.
All right, and we got a cowgirl right here, so I'm gonna take this away. This is just 7 of the more than 350 exhibitors that are going to be down at the Calgary Stampede. As for my favorite, if I had to pick, definitely the Cowboyaki. I still have room for one more bite, but hey, you be the judge of your own favorite when things kick off in July. Terry Fikowski, CTV News, Calgary.
The Calgary Stampede runs from July 5th to the 14th. Up next, a record-breaking stunt from 3,000 feet.
While you're focused on your morning to-dos, your afternoon meetings, your evening commutes, or your late-night shifts, Desjardins Business is focused on more than 400,000 businesses at all hours of the day. With industry knowledge and specialized guidance, we help entrepreneurs rise to the challenge so they can focus on what matters most, growing their business.
How do we make precision tires? We get to know the people who use them. We travel with them, take every pothole, patch of black ice, and surprise the open road throws at them. So whether it's, wow, these roads are so smooth they put my children right to sleep tires, or the 2 kids fighting over a bag of ketchup chips in the back seat when one chip flies in front of your face, causing you to suddenly pull over and take a deep breath while asking for Serenity tires. Ask for Yokohama, made precisely for you.
2 Austrian skydivers have pulled off a jaw-dropping stunt. The pair are the first to successfully navigate a skydiving flight through London's iconic Tower Bridge. The duo leapt from a helicopter, flying at 3,000 feet, and reached a top speed of nearly 250 kilometers an hour. That's quite the leap. Taking a final look at the forecast, it's currently 16 degrees in Montreal with a few clouds, and those will continue overnight. Now, tomorrow is going to be cloudy in the morning with showers developing in the afternoon with a high of 19 degrees. And looking to the week ahead, wet weather for the first few days, but we should see sunny skies again by Thursday. That's it for us. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Attention all home buyers, incredible news! Baldwin Condos and Penthouses in Dollar Desormeaux offers a mortgage rate of just 3.99%. That's right, 3.99%. Our units boast the largest size in the area with amenities like a spa, terrace, gym, and children's park. Secure your dream home today at 3.99%. Learn more at condosbaldwin.ca. Conditions apply. A limited time offer. Visit sales office for details.
Lookkeeper's store-wide sale is on now. May 10th to 12th for 3 days only. Take an extra 25% off store-wide. Plus save up to 60% on door crasher deals. Visit Lookkeeper or lookkeeper.com. Door crasher prices as marked.
If you need a nice truck that can really tow, you need a Chevrolet Silverado 1500. If you need a nice truck that can really tow, you need a Chevrolet Silverado 2500. And if you need to save dough and really tow or really tow, then you really need a Silverado. Choose your Silverado today. Eligible Costco members get a $1,200 bonus on the purchase of a Chevrolet Silverado 1500 or 2500. Other great offers available right now. Conditions apply. Details at chevroletoffers.ca.
Hello?
I see you.
Who is this?
I see what you're doing.
I'm not doing anything.
I see you're alone.
My boyfriend's right here.
Who is it? I see that you're...
I see that you can't see well at all.
Get up to $125 off prescription glasses at New Look. Offer ends June 2nd, just at Laurent Optician.
From May 8th to 12th, it's Samuelson's biannual warehouse sale. Find luxury tailored and ready-to-wear men's suits, sport coats, jackets, shirts, overcoats, and more at incredible prices. Up to 80% off. It only happens twice a year. Park Avenue in Beaumont.
Are you experiencing cracks in your walls or trouble opening and closing your doors and windows? Worried your house is sinking? Acton specializes in foundation stabilization and piling. For free evaluations and financing options, visit acton.ca. The concrete and foundation specialists. Call Acton for action.
Hi, this is Sabrina from Silver and Gold for Cash. Do you have broken or unwanted jewelry? We will pay you cash for it. For over 16 years, Silver and Gold for Cash has been your trusted source for the best rates in Montreal. Come to Leonardo da Vinci Center Tuesday to Saturday, 10 to 5, or silverandgoldforcash.com. Some of us are walking, others are biking. Together, we are accelerating the pace of MS research breakthroughs. This May, join Depodium Mini Entrepot in the nationwide MS Walk. Depodium Mini Entrepot, proud partner of the MS Society of Canada.
Good evening and happy Mother's Day. It's 7 o'clock. I'm Maxim Cadet with your CTV News update. Currently 17 degrees. What are details in minutes? Here's what's making news right now. As we await for tomorrow's court proceedings regarding McGill University's request for an injunction to dismantle the encampment on its campus, another encampment has been set up at a Quebec University campus. L'Université Populaire Al-Aqsa de l'Université de Québec à Montréal are the group responsible for the encampment near the Pierre Dansereau Science Complex at UQAM. They're demanding McGill to withdraw its recent request for a court injunction against protesters. They also want the implementation of an academic boycott at UQAM, the public disclosure of all collaborations and links with Israel, the abolition of the Quebec-Israel office at UQAM, and the abolition of all interstate or interinstitutional agreements with Israel. McGill's encampment was erected back on April 27th, and organizers told reporters yesterday that they have no intention of leaving despite the university's request for an injunction. Montreal police are investigating the city's 10th homicide this year. The event occurred overnight in the Plateau Mont-Royal district. Here's CTV's Stéphane Giroux explaining the circumstances that led to the discovery of the body and the events that happened next.
It's a passerby who discovered the body of the 33-year-old man. That's in the alley behind a gas station at the corner of Park Avenue and Mount Royal. First responders tried to revive the man and when he was found at 5 a.m., but he was declared dead on location. Injuries on his body led police to consider that it was a suspicious death. Police did not say the nature of the injuries, but quickly concluded it was murder. This led to a very important deployment of police resources as crime scene investigators had to close Park Avenue and Mount Royal in both directions throughout most of the day at this otherwise very busy intersection, even on weekends. Now, by late this afternoon, police say they were still on the scene, but that no arrests were made.
The investigation is ongoing. And overseas, flash floods in northern Afghanistan have left hundreds of people dead and hundreds more missing.
The UN Food Agency has estimated that unusually heavy seasonal rains in Afghanistan have left more than 300 people dead. Thousands of houses have been destroyed, most of them in the northern provinces of Baghlan, which bore the brunt of the deluges. The floods hit as Afghanistan is still reeling from a string of earthquakes at the beginning of the year, as well as severe flooding in March. Aid group Save the Children said about 600,000 people, half of them children, live in the 5 districts in Baghlan that have been severely impacted by the floods. I'm Karen Chamas.
With the latest from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center, here's Mark Shalhoub.
Good evening, Maxim. Still a dozen minutes getting over the 40 eastbound's Ila-Torte Bridge from Chemin des Chenaux. 20 eastbound is stop and go before Anguignon to Turcotte with an incident there at Anguignon. Can't see what's happening on the jam cams. Ring us up if you'd be so kind at the end of this report, star 800, and enlighten us on the situation. 136 east is barred from Turcotte to Ottatakin this weekend, as is the Papineau-Leblanc Bridge up to and down from Laval. So extra customers coming down the 15 from Henri Bourassa to the Met, which still is busy between the two 15s westbound. Eastbound is from the Laurentian Outer merge to Saint Laurent to carry south sluggish over the top third. We'll also have some road work on the 13 northbound. Bisson Bridge to Notre Dame. 2 out of 3 lanes will be knocked out at 9, at which time only 1 will be open. Southbound Notre Dame over the Bisson Bridge. It's the My Beauty Offers event at Jean Coutu until May 15th. Selected personnel, cosmetics, makeup products are 25% off. Details at jeancoutu.com. CJAD 800 Traffic and Transit's coming up next, exceptionally during the Suburban Radio Hour at 7:25.
Your Dormez-vous Weather Center forecast. Clearing skies tonight with some fog patches developing overnight. The low 9 degrees. Those fog patches will dissipate tomorrow morning, and then we'll have increasing cloudiness and showers beginning in the afternoon, a high of 19. And then on Tuesday, rain and a high of 18. Right now we have partly cloudy skies and 17 degrees downtown. For a complete recap of today's top stories in Montreal, join us tonight at 11:30 on CTV or here on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the commentator or commentators, and not necessarily those of CJAD 800 or Bell Media.
This is the Suburban Radio Hour, presented by the Suburban Media, the source for the local community news. Visit thesuburban.com. This news segment of the Suburban Radio Hour is brought to you by Click Air. Their team of certified technicians and electricians got you covered for all your heating and cooling needs. Click-air.ca, where comfort meets quality.
Good evening, Montreal. This is Beryl Wiseman, editor of The Suburban, with my great friends and colleagues, Anthony Godefort, features editor, Mark Littbetter, sports editor, Mike Cohen, with everything you need to know about entertainment and society news. And before we get started, let me just wish everybody out there, all the mothers out there, a very happy Mother's Day. Hope it was a very pleasant one for all of you. Things are never boring around town, and this week's issue and this week past is certainly no exception. We've got Mayor Alex Patashi, who's furious over his treatment and the treatment of all the demerged mayors at the Community Metropolitaine de Montréal, the CMM. We've got AGLO, we've got CMM. You got to keep all this straight. We'll have our Chelsea St. Pierre explain all this. Ensemble Montréal, the official opposition at City Hall, and a new business alliance are demanding that the Cavalier Link be built. Family of the woman found dead in the Lakeshore General emergency room, you may remember that story from last year, has now decided to sue the hospital and the CEOs for $1 million. The Ministère des Transports de Québec's parking expansion for the Ile-Tour bridge chaos, people are saying it just won't work. And Ville Maria School in Westmount is not going anywhere. All that and many more stories in the paper. Pick it up. I want to, however, start off the show with a very special guest and a very special issue. This Tuesday is Israel Independence Day, 76th anniversary of the state, sister democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East, and major rally happening at Place du Canada, as does every year at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's important for all of us, as we wrote in our editorial, and it's important for all of us because it's enough. It's enough. Yes, the pro-Hamas demonstrators, the pro-Palestinian demonstrators, call them what you will, have gone down in number. And yes, there are 200 very objectionable people sitting on McGill's campus. And frankly, McGill should sign the charge sheet so the police could do their job. You can't do it just on words. But we've gone through 6 months in this city, from the day after the October 7th slaughter, almost targeted, pre-organized, pre-packaged demonstrations, manifestations, posters, hate speech. It's enough. It's one thing if you want to protest about a country's policies. It's another when you call for the death and destruction of a people. It's yet more when you start committing aggression, trespass, destruction of property, intimidation. And it's yet more when all these demonstrations morph into what they really were. So what started as anti-Israel and anti-Semitic became anti-Canadian, anti-American, and then became demands for people to follow their way of life. A rejection of a liberal pluralistic society. Your presence at the rally on Tuesday is going to be able to give you some dignity and self-respect back and say, you know what, I'm taking my city back. It's my city, it's our city, and people have to respect the pluralism that is at the heart of a diverse, multicultural, democratic society. And it's my great pleasure to have with us, starting off the show, Ambassador Paul Hirshon, who is the Israeli Consul General in Montreal, responsible for Quebec and the Atlantic provinces. And I had the pleasure to hear him speak at two ceremonies last week commemorating Yom HaShoah, which is Holocaust Remembrance Day, including one at City Hall. Paul, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Lovely to be back.
You said some things that needed to be said. You said it so eloquently and so passionately. And as you said, at both places, that the Jewish people have been here before. We're not going there again. And that these fanatics have picked on the wrong generation of Jews to kick around. But you also said at City Hall with the mayor sitting there, that in all the cities you've lived, in all the countries you've been, you really never faced individual anti-Semitism. And indeed, you did say you didn't face it here until October 7th. What has been your experiences since then?
Beryl, I as you just mentioned, I've lived in 7 countries. I've lived in more cities than that. And I've never encountered anti-Semitism. And to be fair, I didn't encounter it in Montreal prior to the 7th of October. But the wave of hatred that has flowed out over this city since October 7th it's not only been terrible, it's been unacceptable. Now I know that this is happening in other places, but this is Montreal, so we'll talk about Montreal, and other places can talk about them.
Right.
We in the West, we who place at the very center of our discourse the rights and the freedom of the individual, find ourselves up against a school of thought which has elevated suicide to a place in society which amounts to nothing less than the worship of death. It's enough already. It's enough already. They're entitled to have their opinions. They're entitled, look, I'm the Israeli Consul General. Obviously, I'm biased. They're entitled to criticize Israel. They're entitled to say what they want. They're not entitled to tell other people, myself included, that we're not allowed to disagree with them.
And it's even more than that. And as I said in my remarks before we went on air, they're demanding things from us as a city, as a society, to adapt to their particularity. It has nothing to do with any legitimate discussion or discourse. It's just madness in the streets. Are you surprised that we're not getting more full-throated condemnation from public officials? I say full-throated, not shocking, in quotations.
Well, I would say this. First of all, on campus, I think in particular, but not only, McGill and Concordia, the administrations have failed. It's a disgrace what's been going on various levels. Right now, there's the encampment on McGill. Earlier on, we've had other things on other campuses. And I think that the administrations have been weak, and I don't understand why. There are 40, 50,000 students at each, and there's a few hundreds at most who making life miserable for everywhere else. Off of campus, I understand. I'm in favor of demonstrations. I understand the importance of demonstrations. I'm not sure that it's acceptable to have people calling for genocide. I'm not sure it's acceptable for people saying at first only in Arabic, and then when it gets out of control, they switch to both English and French, saying, kill the Jews, do this, do that.
And we saw this.
I would expect a stronger condemnation.
And we saw this before, and you're being very polite and diplomatic. I can say it's not acceptable when our reporters and I went into mosques in November, and we taped imams. They were always the English portion, which was moderated, and the Arabic portion, which went into a whole thing from the river to the sea, all the way to the infidels, which are Christians and Jews. It's a call to overturn Western liberal pluralistic civilization, and if they want and some kind of return to a 14th century caliphate. That kind of language is in addition to the anti-Semitic remarks, in addition to the calls for genocide, is against our criminal code, Section 316, Section 317, Section 176. So we have the laws, and we can use them, but unfortunately...
Beryl, I want to say something, and that is this, is that we should be cognizant of the fact that it's not all of the Muslims, and a lot of it is ignorance. And what I mean by that is the following. Israel has made peace with 7 Arab countries, which is 51% of the Arab population in the world.
That is true, and that is historic.
You mentioned the rally on Tuesday, Israel Independence Day rally on Tuesday downtown, which I hope everybody will come to. You will see there Iranians demonstrating in favor of Israel. There are a lot of people in the Middle East, in the Arab world, Iran, they're not Arab, they're Persian, but Muslim, who are horrified by what they see going on in Iran, what they see going on under the fascist jackboot of Hamas, what Hamas has done, both to us in Israel and to their own people, even more so to their own people. But yes, you're right. There's a group of a coalition here of people who they're unaware of the bridges that have been built in the Middle East, and they are never going to forgive the Palestinians when one day the Palestinians reconcile with Israel.
I think that's an important note to end on. It should be a positive note, because we can't, sometimes we shouldn't snatch defeat from the jaws of victory in the sense of just looking at our local areas. It is a historic time, as you mentioned. For the first time in history, the majority of Arab Muslim countries are at peace with Israel, diplomatic and economic ties with Israel, social ties with Israel, and that is important, and that is what's going to propel peace going forward.
And more on the way.
Ambassador Paul Hirschman, always a great pleasure, and Montreal, Tuesday, 11 o'clock, Place de Canada. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It remains a wonderful city.
It does. Thanks very much. We have a constant issue going on in Montreal, throughout the city. The homeless problem, I don't know if City Hall thinks it could talk it away, ignore it away, play with numbers, but it's bad, and it's getting worse, and it's not going to get better with rising housing costs. But what's happening in Côte-des-Neiges and DG really blew up in the past week. Our good friend Joel Chiash, who's with us. Joel, Councillor Stephanie Valenzuela is not happy.
No, she's
and
not.
rightly so.
Well, yeah, correct.
And she was joined by Elizabeth Prass and her colleague Sonny Moroz on this issue.
Right. Well, what started this all was that the opposition councillors for the local borough council, that's Stephanie Valenzuela for Darlington, along with Sonny Moroz from Snowdon, held a press conference at Martin Luther King Park. Also attending was Elizabeth Prass, who's the Darcy McGee MNA. Right. And Quebec official opposition spokesperson on the issue of homelessness. Anyway, they're demanding action by the local borough administration on this issue. Now, the reason why they did this at Martin Luther King Park, as you know, it's right in front of the Multicaf day center, which served as a temporary pilot project night shelter this past winter, with some disastrous consequences, as well as Martin Luther King Park is the site of a year-round homeless population, surrounded by residential commercial properties. And the problem is getting worse. Now, and
this is the second problem in a couple of weeks. Well, that's been brought to light. There was the Hotel Dieu disaster a couple of weeks ago.
There's a Hotel Dieu disaster about making that into a proper facility for the homeless population, which was a real disaster. But in Côte-des-Neiges, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, you have to remember this is the most populous borough on the island of Montreal. People forget about
167,000.
Almost 170,000 people, and the problem is growing. There's no hard numbers on it, but just anecdotally, anybody who spent any time around the borough on the ground, there are dozens and dozens of homeless people in that area around the park, around the Carrie and Côte St. Catherine, Queen Mary, and it's not getting any better. Now, the people who have lived in the area have lived with this situation for quite some time. They spend their evenings looking out the windows. Sometimes.
Joe, by the way, what was the reason given for the closure of the Multicaf facility?
Well, the Multicaf facility had a 4-month trial period. Now, it was supposed to close on March 31st. It did. But 2 weeks into the project, the problems emerged. Now, this program was run by Prevention, CDN, and DG.
And these problems were so insolvable that nobody could come up with an idea of
some of the criticism, it was very slapdash, and they didn't stick with the plan. The plan was to welcome 25 people per night to get warm, to get some rest, get some hot beverages into them to wait out the cold. What ended up happening some nights was up to 60 people. You had violence. You had drug and alcohol consumption indoors and out. There's people damaging property in the area. And the management of Multicaf told me that within weeks they regretted their decision to loan their space, and that a lot of the people who were causing the problem were people with actual homes who were coming around to party. Now, the cameras were turned off. Police are in the area all the time. Residents are fed up. And so the counselor for the area, Stephanie Valenzuela, who grew up in the neighborhood, who knows the issue in the area very well, said it's enough. Now, she made the point that we all recall about 6 months ago, Social Services Minister Lionel Carman basically said very publicly, very clearly, I'll fund any project you hand to me. And he told Elizabeth Prass, according to Prass, that he's waiting on a plan. So they're pushing for a turnkey plan from the borough, along with its various partners, the CEUS and the community organizations, put together a plan, find a facility for a 24/7, 365-day facility in the most populous borough of Cotonou. Find a property, put together a plan, and hand it to the province, and let's get started.
And Joel, I know we're going to get back to this. We're up against the clock a little bit, but I know you tried. Carman's still trying to keep promises on the DPG, on the youth protection file. So I won't hold my breath about that. But he's a good guy personally, but I don't know. These ministries are a bit too much for him. But let me just wrap it up on this note. I know that you tried for days to get a reaction from the mayor of Cotonou.
Well, the mayor and her staff were asked for a comment about this. I received no response. They did not respond to the Suburban, but there was a testy debate about this at council this week, and that in the end, the proposal put forward by the opposition, the city agreed to take it. The borough agreed to take it, but they watered down the language somewhat. They made it more positive about working in collaboration with their partners. But it also it became a very hot debate, as the mayor claimed that the opposition didn't know how the city worked and questioned their knowledge of the issues. And I want to save that for next week, because we're going to talk about incivility at council.
Perfect.
But this is not going anywhere. The opposition, as you know, has been saying for years that the city is too often acting in a reactive way rather than proactive. Au fur et à mesure, everything's ad hoc. And it's hard to disagree when you see what's going on.
Joel Chasher, thanks for your great work, and we'll keep our eye on these issues and others. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Take care.
And off to the West Island, and we have again, Mayor Alex Patasio, DDO, is not happy with the Center City. He had an issue a couple of weeks ago at the Aglo, and now he's furious about the CMM. Chelsea St. Pierre, tell us what's happening.
So following what Joel just said, about the city being reactive rather than proactive. So normally that's the case, when we cover stories such as, homelessness in Montreal, they tend to react rather than be proactive in those situations. However, when it comes to urban planning, they're very, very proactive, and they tend to make decisions way ahead of time, not only for their own municipalities, but for the demerged cities, which are demerged cities. They are not municipalities.
I was about to say, so they seem to be proactive in terms of coming to conclusions, despite what any of the demerged cities did in their consultations. And that's what got Mayor Patasio upset.
Yeah, and not all demerged cities do consultations so well. The DDO, the Lac des Ormeaux, DDO is an example for the West Island of how to do proactive planning. I've even met a city councillor, I won't mention from which city, given the current situation, but there was even city councillors from other cities that have come to DDO at the public consultations that I've met with, that said that they were there to see what DDO is doing as an example for their own cities, because DDO takes a very strong stance in meeting with the public, reviewing with the urban planning department, going back and forth over and over again. I mean, we're talking several meetings, and then even after they've come up with the urban plan, they do again another 2 days of consultation at their city center to meet with residents so that anybody can come, and they do one weekday, a busy weekday, mind you, with lots of sports activities going on near the Civic Center, which is also attached to their main sports center, their library, and also on a weekend day where I personally watch hundreds of residents walk in and sit down and have a private meeting at one of the 3 booths set up with urban planning department employees, representatives, and so their plan is rock solid, and it's not just based on what the residents want, because sometimes
they have their own expertise there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know you're going to be covering this as it develops, and I know Mayor Abbotashi is not going to let this go. So we know there's going to be more to come on this story of the friction that's always there between not only demerged cities, but as you said, between boroughs and the center city. Chelsea St. Pierre, thanks for your great work. And this is Beryl Wiseman, editor of the Suburban Radio Hour, and we'll be back with my friend and colleague Anthony Bonaparte. But first, we're off to the CJAD Traffic Center.
This news segment of the Suburban Radio Hour is brought to you by Click Air. Their team of certified technicians and electricians got you covered for all your heating and cooling needs. Click-air.ca, where comfort meets quality.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Good evening. Still a little slow going over the 40 eastbound's Illatort Bridge. One lane, of course, and that's why it's still filling in before Chemin de Chenot for a dozen minutes till you get to the western tip of the island. Met eastbound, a little sluggish. L'Acadie to Saint-Laurent. The Met West busy between the 215s on this Mother's Day post-dinner for many at this point. And to carry south, a little bit of improvement. Royal-Mount to Jean Talon is where there's a slight pinch. Outbound La Fontaine, 6 minutes via Souligny East, 20 from the Hochelaga-Ben on the 25 south. It's cleared out on the approach to the inbound La Fontaine, where there'll be a single lane closed come 10 o'clock in the De Mortagne sector. Papineau-Leblanc Bridge up to and down from Laval closed all weekend. Some company coming on the 13 and the 15 in the roadwork department tonight, plus on the 136 west. We'll tell you all about it as we keep rolling along ce soir. Get your DIY on during the Get Ready for Summer sale at Home Hardware with deals on paint and power tools only until June 5th. I'm Mark Shalhoub from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center with your next report during the Suburban Radio Hour, exceptionally at 7:37.
You hear him on the radio, you see him on TV, and you can read him every week in the pages of the Suburban. Dr. Mitch Schulman, Montreal's favorite emergency medicine specialist, has a friendly and lighthearted approach to explaining the latest in medical news that makes his popular columns a definitive must-read. Get your regular dose every week in the features section of the Suburban newspaper, a great complement to our award-winning news and sports pages. Read Dr. Mitch in print and find him online at thesuburban.com. The Suburban Media, your community leader for the news you need to know.
And welcome back, Montreal, to the Suburban Radio Hour. I'm Beryl Wiseman, editor of the Suburban. My great friends and colleagues. Sorry, I was swallowing the wrong way. Anthony Bonaparte, features editor, Smart Live Better sports editor, and Mike Cohen will be up with everything you need to know about intermittent society news. Anthony,
Beryl,
you have our wonderful Jen.
Why are you laughing, Beryl?
I don't know.
So what were we talking about off air?
Well, I think what is talked about off air should stay off air between
exactly.
us and Marco.
Yeah, what's in Vegas stays in Vegas.
I have to thank our producer, Marco, the Mad Monk companion. Yeah, the Mad Monk, he likes to wear hoodies.
Thumbs up to him.
In the studio, but that's okay. He's got also that countenance.
We have Jen on the line, journalist, writer, blogger, mother, volunteer, and an all-around nice person. Hello, Jen.
Hello, gentlemen.
How you doing?
With a great radio voice, by the way.
I'm good.
I'm jealous. I gotta. I'll show the Jen. Yeah.
She's got a great radio voice.
Hey, Jen. How you doing?
There you go.
Thank you. I always had the gift of the gab. I don't know that my teachers would have always attested to the fact that I had a great speaking voice, but I never had a problem with the speaking part.
Well, you're doing great on radio. I did a story last week in the paper on the annual, on a great fundraiser.
That's right.
That happens every year. What happens?
So MS Canada West Island is not only celebrating their 50th anniversary being a chapter, but they're also celebrating their 25th anniversary of the MS Walk. So the MS Walk is taking place on Sunday, May 26th at École de Source in Dollard, and registration starts at 10 a.m. This is their biggest annual fundraising event, so hopefully they have a really good turnout.
A local organization had some great news this past week.
Yeah, so this made me really happy. Welcome Hall Mission and McGill University's Faculty of Dental Medicine and Oral Health Services, they just completed the Jim Lund Dental Clinic expansion project. So they started this last October, and basically they're going to be able to double their capacity and offer free dental care to Montrealers who need it the most. I don't know if you guys have ever had dental work done, but my goodness, you could take out a second mortgage to pay for some of the things that you need to get done dental-wise. Have you guys ever had to go through that?
Don't get me started about dentists.
Not good. I would go back into the army faster than go to a dentist sometimes, and Anthony has regaled me with his things with dental. But that's why we're trying to get this.
They're important.
But that's why we're trying to get this dental care bill federally, and somehow that was part of the NDP Liberal deal, wasn't it, Anthony?
Yeah.
And where is
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, I had recently a root canal with a crown done, and it cost me almost $3,000. I mean, I don't understand how
$3,000 is good. I've heard of $5,000 for that.
I know. I know. It's absolutely astronomical. So what great news that we have this service here in Montreal, that they can help people, including homeless, new arrivals, people that came from, low-income families. They can all get the dental services that they need. So it's great initiative.
The best incentive to basically go to brush your teeth and floss and do all that stuff is looking at a dental bill.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
We have a home section coming up on May 22nd. You have some stories going in there, Beryl. Jen?
Yes, my beloved home section every month. Yep. So we'll have my column once again called My Generation. And I'll also be doing 2 articles, one on opening up our pools. So there's definitely a process involved to getting our pools going each year, and pool owners know that. So this will be a helpful article for them. And I'm also going to be writing a piece on eco-responsible gardening. So I'm a pretty avid gardener at my own house. But I learned through doing the interview, which I just recently did, there's a lot of things that I could be doing in my own backyard to be a little more eco-responsible while I garden. So I'll be offering some great tips in that article as well.
It's important stuff. Today is Mother's Day. And let me be the first to wish you, not the first, I'm sure, I'm down the line of saying Happy Mother's Day to you, Jen.
Thank you.
And from me, too.
Thank you. Thank you, boys. Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day, Jen.
Thank you. And I'd like to wish a happy Mother's Day, too, to all the moms out there, including my own mom. Moms do a lot. We do a lot of stuff, and it's nice to have a little day for, a little bit of R&R and a little bit of appreciation. We all love getting those handprint crafts and those world's greatest mom mugs and all that good stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I really do.
Okay.
I
was just trying
do.
to be polite and follow Anthony's lead.
Our mothers all deserve.
Absolutely.
Those that are still around. A lot. I mean, whenever Mother's Day comes around and I think about my mother and what she's been through and what she's still doing for me and doing for the family, and I regret all of those times that I have ill thoughts, but you know what? Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
I never had ill thoughts, but
I aggravate. And it's to the mums, the stepmoms, the single moms.
There you go.
The single moms,
Absolutely.
two mother families, all of them out there. And I won't say what Samuel L. Jackson says, but
let's leave it there.
We'll leave it there.
Jennifer, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye. In our most recent features section, our good old Dr. Mitch answered the question, do you have to break a sweat to benefit from exercise? And he also talked about the health benefits of a hug. Now, last week after the show, we all went for a group hug.
Yes.
Did it work for you, Beryl?
It worked.
I had a good shower after.
Mark? Yeah.
I had a good shower.
I had a calm feeling. I was zen.
Did it? Yeah. Okay.
Not really. We just,
I felt good for about a second or so, yeah.
Yes.
And then I walked the block. Okay. We had plenty of stuff online also, including John Abbott College received a WWF Canada grant for a land-based project enhancing biodiversity, kind of like what Jen was talking about. Now, WWF, for those of you who don't know, is not World Wrestling Federation, but the World Wildlife Fund. Just wanted to make sure.
The Panda Bear.
Which is why they had to change it to WWE.
Exactly. Did it?
They were told by the World Wildlife Federation. I think there was legal proceedings.
So I'm sure there was.
And it became World Wrestling Entertainment.
Okay. A great idea and a great initiative that we should all follow before it's too late, because we are all going to hell with this planet. Upcoming concerts at the MSO, or if you prefer the OSM. What do you call it? What do you call it? The MSO? How stubborn are you? Which one do you use?
The orchestra.
The MSO or OSM?
I just say orchestra.
The orchestra?
I just say orchestra.
So you fall down the middle.
What?
No,
What is the orchestra or orchestra?
No, orchestra.
Okay.
What, he falls in the pit, you said? The orchestra pit.
I did a piece online on May 6th being Quebec Steamy Day. Apparently, a full 43% of Quebecers prefer grilled hot dogs over steamed hot dogs.
I like grilled hot dogs.
An important story.
I like it. Is.
You prefer grilled?
It's the pleasures in life that really matter. The other nonsense we're going to have all the time.
Mark?
I like a nice grilled one, but steamy with the coleslaw, number one.
How about condiments? No, so what condiments you put on yours?
How much can I fit on it?
Okay, that's a good answer.
There we go.
Okay.
Relish. I need relish and mustard.
Relish and mustard.
The rest, but when they grill it, I like them. When they cut it on the angle,
Yeah.
there's like 4 cuts, and then it really is crunchy.
I like to experiment with my hot dogs when I have hot dogs. You ever read the ingredients in a hot dog?
I don't want to.
Seriously.
I don't. I had a friend who was
nostril or
no.
intestine
we've all heard the old saw, but
chicken lips and or
you don't want to you don't want to see how sausages or laws are made.
Exactly.
But I had a friend in the meat business who actually was a wholesaler, producer. And he said, "You really don't want to see how sausages are made."
No, I've seen how they're made.
But I still love them. But I figure Hebrew National, even though it's not kosher, but it's got the name Hebrew in it. Hebrew National. It sounds institutional. I figure, okay, maybe it's a little less gristle and garbage.
Just don't read the instructions. Don't read the ingredients. Just have a hot dog. You know what I like on my hot dogs?
What?
Matouk's West Indian hot sauce.
Oh my!
It goes good on
all right,
everything.
I think Montreal. We're ending this show early because there's a great. We're hungry and we're going.
In an upcoming issue, Dr. Mitch again talks about. Starts off with a bold statement: anger isn't good for you.
No kidding.
You had a radio show. It's called The Last Angry Man.
Some guys.
I'm the second to last angry man. So, anger. I live on anger.
I wish I didn't have I really wish I didn't have the angry gene. Like I wish I had the more reflective gene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's somehow, but it's just so satisfying sometimes to get it all out there and be in your face. Everybody's always worried about, there's these people in the streets and I'm getting hurt and I'm worried about this, I'm scared about that. But sometimes to confront these animals and just get it all out there, and they're scared to death of you.
Preferably put the baseball bat down first.
No baseball bat. No, just
okay. Anyway, he gives the medical reasons why and some practical advice on how to avoid blowing our gaskets. It's great stuff, but meh, not for me.
Meh.
I like being pissed off all day.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Beryl Wiseman.
And we'll be back with you at the Suburban Radio Hour and everything you need to know about entertainment and society news with Mike Cohen. But first, we're off to the CJAD Traffic Center.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Happy Mother's Day. Still a dozen minutes getting over that single-lane Illitor Bridge on the 40. How's the 20 in the old Turcotte Yards? Well, still a little slow just as you approach the exit for either the 15 South or DeCarry North. This because the Turcotte is where the closure begins for the 136 East through until Ottawakan. You have the 136 West already shut throughout the weekend. From Panay to Lucien Lallier. They'll have some company on the 136 West with the exit closure to DeCarry North. It's going to be kicking in at 10 o'clock. Still a little slow on the Met West between the 215s eastbound from L'Acadie to Saint-Laurent. And if the 13 is in your sights, northbound from the Visson Bridge to Notre-Dame, just one lane will be open come 9 o'clock, at which time the southbound side will have 2 out of 4 lanes closed from Notre-Dame to the Visson Bridge. Much more still to come. Shop the Triangle Max Stack event at Canadian Tire and L'Équipeur. It's the biggest rewards event of the season. On now. Conditions apply. Visit triangle.com for details. Mark Schiller will be your next CJAD 800 traffic report at 7:45.
The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the commentator or commentators, and not necessarily those of CJAD 800 or Bell Media.
I'm Montreal Beryl Wiseman after the Suburban with you. You're back on the Suburban Radio Hour, and we turn it over to Mike Cohen with everything you need to know for in entertainment and society news.
Well, thank you very much, Beryl. Pleasure to be back on the Suburban Radio Hour on CJAD. Dollar Des Ormeaux' Marcy Grossman has enjoyed a distinguished 30-plus year career in the Canadian Public Service. She's retired, but most recently she was Canada's ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. And I got to sit down with her for my Cohen in the City podcast series for the Suburban when she was in town earlier this week. And here is part of that conversation that I bring to you on CJAD. Welcome to Marcy Grossman, the former Canadian ambassador to the United Arab Emirates, former consul general and a diplomat in the Canadian government. Marcy was in Montreal to speak at the Shar Shemayim. What was that all about, Marcy?
Oh, thanks, Mike. Well, I was talking about seeds of hope in the Middle East. Now, I know that's a little bit difficult for people to get their heads around now, even myself, who has seen seeds of hope bloom in the Middle East. But it was a great talk. I spoke about my experience seeing the Abraham Accords bloom in the Middle East and peace between Israel and many of its Arab neighbors, and how peace can bloom in some of the most unexpected places and the most desolate climates. And seeds of hope will flourish. And I was just trying to get people inspired and excited about something that they didn't know about, just to keep hope.
You spent 33 years in the public service, 22 years as a diplomat, and the last 3, I believe, as the Canadian ambassador to United Arab Emirates. That was the icing on the cake, I guess.
That was the pièce de résistance. That was my mic drop moment.
And yeah,
didn't think I would be able to match the amazing opportunity and the challenge that was. To make a contribution towards Middle East peace, being Canada's Jewish female ambassador during the Abraham Accords in the United Arab Emirates, I wanted to leave on a high note while I was still fresh, and I had stories to tell, and I wanted to be able to do that outside the parameters of the government of Canada.
So now that you've retired as a diplomat and you're doing this full time, any organization listening to this interview could go to your website, marcygrossman.com,
that is me.
And they could engage your services.
I would love that. I speak about, if I didn't already mention, women's empowerment, radical career transformation, and leadership in uncertain times.
And of course, a little shout out before we go to Dollar Des Ormeaux, where you grew up.
DDO, Riverdale High, 1981. Woo!
Riverdale High, okay. You and Archie Andrews.
Yes.
That's terrific. Well, Marcy, good luck, and listeners could go to Cohen in the City on our website to see my full interview with Ambassador Grossman. Well, moving on to some other society and entertainment news, I was pleased to attend Share the Warmth's youth cocktail reception and silent auction recently at their Point St. Charles headquarters. This wonderful place provides food and clothing to the less fortunate, along with a lot of pedagogical programming. There was a silent auction, and Dunn's famous franchisee, Andy Hodis, vice chair of the board of Share the Warmth, he treated everyone on hand to freshly cut smoked meat sandwiches. Thank you, Tony Sama and company. It was a great evening. Recognition awards, a good time had by all. The Lachine Hospital Foundation's signature gala recently raised $182,830 net to support the Dream Big Lachine Hospital campaign. That's an ongoing collaboration between the Lachine Hospital Foundation and the MUHC Foundation. This was an evening filled with 70s disco flair, delicious canopies, thrilling prizes. The fabulous Montreal Airport Marriott In-Terminal Hotel, a nice sponsor at the Suburban. We have their ads in all the time for their great brunch. It was converted into the Studio 514, a unique Montreal spin on the famed disco club, nightclub, Studio 54, and it was a moving evening filled with celebration, and prominent members of the West Island business community came together to support the cause. Terrific. The Book of Izzy will have its official launch at the Museum of Jewish Montreal on Tuesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. in partnership with Bibliophile. You can get copies at the latter location on Queen Mary Road and on Amazon. This brilliant book, which I reviewed, it's written by Ben Gonshore, story about a man trying to find his own place between two worlds as he reckons with letting go of his painful past to focus on creating a fulfilling present. Also, Danny Gallagher's amazing book about the Montreal Expos explosion, collection of essays related to the 36 seasons from 1969 to 2004. You can read all these stories that I talked about above in our FYI magazine, available on our website. Thank you, Anthony and Stephen, for putting together an amazing publication. Siegel Center, POTUS, that stands for President of the United States. That play is coming to is at the Siegel Center right now. It's going until June 2nd. The Siegel Center also announced their series of shows for 2024, 2025. Please go to my blog, Cohen Confidential, my entertainment notebook on our website, where you can read all of the entertainment news and more. That's it for this week, Beryl. Thank you very much. Real pleasure. And have a good week, everybody.
Thanks, Mike. And now to the best weather specialist in the city, our own Stephen Bellina. Steve, what do we got?
Good evening, Montreal, and happy Mother's Day. I'm Stephen Bellina, and this is the Suburban Weather Minute. The weather has been very unsettled this spring, highly variable, changing rather quickly, and that is common in a zonal flow where systems are moving rapidly from west to east across the country. We don't get locked in any weather pattern for any prolonged period of time. So what it means is you end up with a week like this past week where you have Monday and Tuesday brilliant sunshine, temperatures into the low and middle 20s, and that's followed by Wednesday where you have strong northeast winds, rainfall, and temperatures struggling to get into the low teens. And that pattern looks to remain in place through the end of this month. While temperatures are going to be above normal overall, they're going to be interspersed with some days that are rather cool, and we're seeing several opportunities for rainfall. That is not a bad thing. We have had 27.4 millimeters of rain so far this month. That is on the heels of the 142 millimeters that fell last month, which was well above normal for the month of April, and the double the normal amount of snowfall. We had about 26 centimeters here in Montreal. And what that has done is kept the ground rather wet. And that has cut down on the amount of brush and forest fires, which can really get ramped up in the months of April and May. You remember last year we had over 18 million hectares burned across Canada in a record-setting forest fire season that was just devastating, day after day of smoky skies and poor air quality. This year's been different so far, and we hope that trend continues. SOTFU, the agency responsible for forest fire prevention in the province, is reporting 70 fires to date. The long-term average, 10-year average for this time of year is around 89. So we really do hope that that trend continues as we head into the warmer months of June, July, and August. Time will tell. You can always get an update on my blog at thesuburban.com, the Suburban Weather page. Until next time, I'm Stephen Bellina.
Thanks, Steve, and you're listening to the Suburban Radio Hour on CJAD 800, and we're going to go to sports and Mark Livebetter in a moment, but first, we're going off to the CJAD Traffic Center.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Good evening, happy Mother's Day, and here's what's being added to the mix roadwork-wise. 13 northbound from the Visson Bridge to the Notre Dame sector. 2 out of 3 lanes will be knocked out over there come 9 o'clock, at which time 13 south between Notre Dame and the Visson Bridge will have 2 out of 4 lanes barred. Also at 9, the 50 east in Mirabel will be closed from the Henri Fabre exit to the 15, which on the southbound side from the 344 to the Gédéon-Ouimet Bridge will have 1 out of 3 lanes closed. Now heads up 10 p.m. counterflow up in Mirabel and Saint-Jérôme on the 15 in both directions between kilometers 39 and 43, a single lane of counterflow per direction on the southbound side of that 15. Papineau-Leblanc Bridge up to and down from Laval has been closed all weekend long. The 136 West has been shut from Pennet to Lucien-Lallier. The exit off the 136 West to the Carry North will be closed a little later come 10 o'clock. Shop the Triangle Max Stack event at Canadian Tire and Equipage. It's the biggest rewards event of the season. On now. Conditions apply. Visit triangle.com for details. I'm Mark Shalhoub, your next CJAD 800 traffic report at 8:03.
Looking for easy, informative, and entertaining local reads? Well, look no further than the feature section of the Suburban newspaper, a great complement to our award-winning news and sports pages. You'll read about places to go and things to do in arts and entertainment, get insightful information about everything from home decor and pet care to senior living, education issues, hot travel destinations, and much, much more. You'll even get weekly doses of health-related information from Montreal's favorite emergency medicine specialist, Dr. Mitch Schulman. Read our stories in print and find much more online at thesuburban.com. The Suburban Media, your community leader for the news you need to know.
Every week in the blog section of thesuburban.com, we post fun and helpful articles written by our expert writers. Each day, discover delicious recipes, get practical parenting advice, read tips from professional organizers, and learn about home trends, chic new products, and so much more. Read reviews on the hottest new book titles and join our virtual book club, where our writers discuss the latest reads with the authors themselves. In our monthly video segment called Community Spotlight, meet some of the incredible charities and organizations organizations who are making a huge impact in our towns and cities. And find all the latest news, weather, sports, entertainment, and more online. Go to thesuburban.com and visit our blog section or download the Suburban app today. The Suburban Media, the source for the local community news.
You hear him on the radio, you see him on TV, and you can read him every week in the pages of The Suburban. Dr. Mitch Schulman, Montreal's favorite emergency medicine specialist, has a friendly and light-hearted approach to explaining the latest in medical news that makes his popular columns a definitive must-read. Get your regular dose every week in the features section of the Suburban newspaper, a great complement to our award-winning news and sports pages. Read Dr. Mitch in print and find him online at thesuburban.com. The Suburban Media, your community leader for the news you need to know.
And good evening, Montreal. Beryl Wiseman, editor of The Suburban, back with you with the Suburban Radio Hour with my good friends and colleagues, Anthony Bonaparte, features editor, Mike Cohen, who brought you everything you need to know about entertainment and society news. And now we turn it over to Mark Ledbetter, our sports editor. And Mark, you've got a fascinating guest today who's really going for a great achievement.
That's right. I have Montreal's Alex Moore, Olympian. That has a nice ring to it. And he's a freestyle wrestler who's heading to the Paris Games this summer. And he trains out of the Reinitz Wrestling Center of the Westbury Y. So, Alex, welcome and congratulations on making the grade.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Now listen, you've been at it a long time, since the age of 11, I believe. But you come by it honestly. Your dad coaches wrestling, and he coached you, and I believe he coached you at Selwyn House, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He coached me at Selwyn, yeah.
So, I mean, what was the attraction? What is the love you have for this sport? You know, because it's tough.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough sport. I think it was from a really young age, being born into it, and then seeing my dad and just wanting to emulate him. And, you know, every kid, you know, you just want to be like your dad. So, you know, my first tournament was when I was 11 years old. But I was in the wrestling room long before that. Like, I was in the baby carriage at practice. My dad would bring me. He changed my diapers there. It was a lifelong affair.
No, it's amazing. And you also, you wrestled for Vanier and at Concordia, and you've represented the country on the international stage at the World University Games. You've medaled at the Commonwealth Games in 22 and the 2018 World University Games with bronze. So obviously, you know, you're in it. You know, you want to do well. You didn't make the games in China. Did that fuel the fire to come back and work harder to make the games in Paris?